Hey now, it's Mike Gilbert, host of the Mike and JD Show, right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Join JD by God Oliva and myself every Thursday night live on the Voices of Wrestling YouTube channel at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we stay up all night discussing all the hottest stories in professional wrestling. You can also check us out right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting feed, or you can subscribe to the Mike and JD Show feed. Now, enjoy the show.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Thank you so much for supporting WWE and NXT and me. You're so sweet.
You are listening to the Flagship Podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
Let's pull over and have a wank, and then they pull over and have a wank, and then they do what they do, I don't know, that's sex positive.
Rich Cringe. No offense to anybody that's listening that's a pilot or a boat captain, but you know what I mean? It's
Who do you think's listening to this show?
I don't know. And we are live on the Flagship Podcast. I am Rich, and back from his 1 week hiatus, it is Joe Lanza. Joe, what's happening? How are you?
I agree with Fallon Henley or Alexa Bliss, whoever that is. Who was that in the intro?
Thea Hale.
Thea Hale.
Yes.
I am very sweet. I agree with her. She makes a good point.
She makes a lot of good points in there. You love NXT. You love her. And, you are very sweet. So.
How is Thea Hale doing, by the way?
How is Thea Hale doing? Great question that I absolutely am prepared to answer for you right now. How is Thea Hale doing? I don't know. You
like to keep up with.
You know me. I'm of course a huge NXT. I'm not going to her cage match to see if she's been wrestling or if she's out, or maybe she's succumbed to the torn ACL syndrome that all them. No, she hasn't been on NXT TV in a while. I don't know. Okay. So she was last on NXT TV in July of 2024, losing to Roxanne Perez at the Great American Bash. Yeah, I'm assuming that's probably what had to have happened, knowing
working the road though.
So she worked in July of 2024. Then she took a month off and then came back to NXT Live in August of 2024. Then didn't wrestle until February of 2025. Did a house show against JC Jane, Toxic Attraction number 3 in Lakeland, Florida. Then took a couple of weeks off, went back against Ren Sinclair at the Havert L. Finn Center in Fort Pierce, Florida. And then worked earlier this month, 20 days ago now, teaming with Lash Legend and Maxine Dupree against Fallon Henley, JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix, of course, Fatal Influence, at the Jacksonville Armory in Jacksonville, Florida. So she's wrestled 3 times this calendar year and just a handful of times since July of 2024. So
that loss to Roxanne Perez at whatever pay-per-view or TV special that was, right? I remember that match. That they kind of like wrote her off TV.
Sort of, yeah, I guess so, because I guess Chase U isn't thriving anymore around it. Yeah, so I guess that was it for Thea Hale for a little bit, I suppose. Maybe they're repackaging her or something. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have no idea.
Well, she's a deeply annoying pro wrestler, so hopefully that's the last we ever see of her.
Tears. No tears for me. Yeah, no, it speaks to what you talked about, or we always talk about in the with NXT and how it's changed so much in the last couple of months and really the last half a year, where it is no longer like all those green as grass, never getting any better, spinning their wheels people in their early 20s are kind of gone from that show. I mean, for the most part, there's a couple of them that have still endured, but most of them are kind of gone, and some of them maybe go to TNA occasionally, but a lot of them are just getting stuffed onto like Evolve or whatever and just getting sent away in favor of, especially in the women's division with NXT, it's like, no, we have Stephanie Vakir and Julia and Jordan Grace, and we don't need you. Thea Hale, who is not good and not getting any better, but interesting how that so many of those women that were such a central part of that show just a year ago are now completely gone. You don't see any of them.
Well, most of them stink.
Yeah, they're bad. Yeah, most of them are bad and not getting any better.
It's funny how her last house show match was against the JC Jane crew.
Yes.
Because it's like it's like a Paul Levesque feud. It just never ends. It's going to be Thea Hale versus the JC Jane crew. Remember, she was briefly with JC Jane, and
they made her. Remember, they put her in leather. Yeah, they put her in leather. They put makeup on her, and she's like, I don't know if I like this. This isn't quite me. And they're like, no, you look good or whatever. Put her in a push-up bra and some leather, and was like, there you go.
Absolutely. BDSM gear.
Yeah, that didn't last very long. But
Chappin. No, I
forgot about that feud. Thank you for reminding me of the Fatal Influence Thea Hale thing. Yeah.
Well, listen, just a couple weeks ago in the Jacksonville Armory, you could have experienced it live. So,
right, but unfortunately,
maybe next time on the Largo Loop, which is our term, by the way. I know a lot of people call it the Coconut Loop. Fuck that. We dubbed it the Largo Loop.
Yep. Many
years ago, long before the Coconut Loop was a thing, and here in this show, it's the Largo Loop, okay? I guess that's what's up with Thea Hale. What's up with the Chicago White Sox? What's going on with
my surging Chicago White Sox? I know you are, which is funny. We are entering this baseball season, and we are both in alignment on the team that we want to win at least 55 games or 56 games. Your Chicago, Joe Lanza, your Chicago White Sox. You have put some units, some entertainment purposes only units on the Chicago White Sox. What was the over-under? 54? 54 and a half?
I got it at 54. 54 push. So it's the drive to 55.
There it is, baby. Yeah, I got it at 54.5, 54 and a half. When you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, you know what? I got to do my annual White Sox over-under bet, and I was pleasantly happy. I was pleasantly surprised and very happy to put the over. I mean, when it's 54 and a half, I'm like, oh my God. So last year, and you recall, we've talked about this last year, I forget what the number was, but it was some absurd number.
It was in the 60s. It was in the 60s.
It was like 68, and I couldn't hit the under on that so fast. I put as much money as I was allowed on this particular entertainment website only, and I put as much units on that entertainment site only as I possibly could. I was like, you're really going to put this team at 68 and a half? It was somewhere around there. It was like high 60s. And I was like, no, they're not going to get anywhere near that win total. And comfortably, I think they paid me out I think they waited till the end of the year, but they could have paid me out, I believe, in early September.
I mean, they won 44 games, right?
Right. I think I locked that in like mid-August, and I was like, you guys can pay me now if you'd like. You can wait if you want, just for pleasantries or whatever, but you probably should just pay me out right now. But pleasantly surprised to get him at 54 and a half, and off to a great start already. Our Chicago White Sox show 1-0.
Yeah, they won 41 games last year. I mean, I think, the total was in the 60s, but I played the over. I mean, just regression to the mean more than anything else. I mean, even Vegas agrees. I mean, they have them winning 13 more games than they won last year, right? Even that ridiculously low total of 54 is 13 more than they won 41 games last year. So it's very rare to be historically bad 2 years in a row. So remember 2 years ago, the A's were the White Sox.
Yeah.
The A's were just putrid, right? And then, last year, I don't know, they won 60-something games or something like that.
It's hard. It's hard to be that bad. In baseball, baseball's weird and random, and everything had to go wrong for the White Sox last year to be as historically bad as they were. Of course, when you win that amount of games, you have to. Everything just has to be poor, and it was. Everything was just awful, and their bullpen was historically bad, and they just couldn't get out of the rut that they were in. It's very hard for that to happen 2 years in a row, because someone in that bullpen is going to click and be good all year. Some starting pitcher is going to be good. Some guy is going to have a career year. None of that happened last year. Everybody was bad. Nobody could hit. Nobody could, and but it was weird because the White Sox last year, the starting pitching was pretty good. It wasn't great, but it was pretty damn good. And the bullpen was just terrible. And the offense was just terrible. And that's what kind of led to that. It'd be very difficult for all those things to be as bad as they were again this year.
Yeah. You're going to have just natural regression to the mean, and the bullpen can't possibly be it's not going to be a historically bad bullpen again, even though it's not going to be a good bullpen. And look, they have a lot of replacement level veteran players. You know what I mean? They're not going to be the fun, historically bad, how low can it go team this year. They're just going to be a regular bad 100-loss team. And it's not. So that's my question for you.
Get into it.
Yeah. So that's my question for you. Would you rather be a fun, bad, historically, how low can it go mess? Or would you rather just be a regular old boring team that loses 100 games?
Historically bad. Definitely the historically bad, for sure.
Because it's both awful, but one is at least interesting, right? So, they have like Michael A. Taylor and Andrew Benintendi and Travis Jankowski. And,
Mike Talkman.
Mike Talkman. They brought in Martin Perez, who will pitch to a 4.6 ERA. And they have a bunch of these average major league guys. Now, they're not going to win 41 games again. So people who want to see a horror show, the team I would direct you to is the Colorado Rockies. I think they're going to be this year's White Sox. I think they're going to struggle to get to 50 wins. Plus, they're in a division with the Dodgers and the Padres and the Diamondbacks. The Giants are nothing special, but they're a 500 team. So they're going to struggle to win in their own. They play those teams 19 times each. The NL is stronger than the A. Play the Mets and the Phillies and the Braves. The Rockies, I think, are going to be this year's White Sox. I think the White Sox will win around 60 games, between 60, 65 games. And I think the Rockies are going to be the team that fights, scratches, and crawls to 50. It's really hard to win less than 50 games. What the White Sox did last year really was historically.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of a kind. Yeah. One of a kind, horrible year. But it's already looking better, honestly, because they scored more runs today than I think they did in any game last year, which seems impossible to believe, but is true.
Yeah.
Which
they
is
won 9-1.
Which is perfect baseball stuff. You know what I mean? It's like they have a year last year where all 162 games, they failed to score 9 runs. First game out of the gates here in 2025, they scored 9 runs perfectly. And this is a fun fact that I saw as well. This is the first time the Chicago White Sox, our Chicago White Sox, are over 500 since March of 2023.
Yeah.
March, pre-collision, Joe, 3 months before collision began, right?
Yeah.
CM Punk still employed by AEW, just on the, that's the last time the White Sox
Wait, that wasn't 2022?
No.
Wait, you get your year.
No.
Collision was 2023?
Yes.
Wow. Pre-collision.
3 months before collision, not like the day before collision. 3 months before collision existed. Think of everything that's happened on collision. Think of the entire thing of AEW collision. That was 3 months before, or 3 months after the White Sox were last over 500. And they're over 500 today at 1-0. But
hey, listen, we need 54 more, baby. That's all we need.
that's
and we'll be cashing tickets. That's
absolutely
not asking a lot.
It's really not. It's really not. I'm feeling very good about that bet for sure.
We might be cashing this baby by mid-August. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But
calm down there, Chief. September. Let's talk in September.
Now the Angels,
they're awful. They're bad. Yeah.
Their total was 71.5. I hammered that under. They're gonna stink, the Angels. They're not gonna be any good. The Marlins, I hammered that under. It was like 64.5 or something. I think they're gonna be terrible. I didn't play the Rockies under though, because it was like so low. It was like I had to lay low on that one. It was too low. But good for the White Sox. Because I bet on them, they've got a designated television in the den. So the top left TV in the den, the one right under the smoke detector, ironically enough, because the White Sox are on fire. Okay, with the 1-0 record. That is the White Sox TV. That is the Drive to 55 TV. The top left TV is where the White Sox games will be on all year long in Casa Lanza. And ironically enough, you will not be able to watch any White Sox
you can watch the White Sox, and I still cannot. So fantastic. So
yes. So that's an absolute. Reinsdorf picked a great time to not have his new little channel available on all cable packages, because who's going to hop through hoops to watch another 100-loss season out of the White Sox?
Not many. Yeah, the Bulls, because the Bulls are also on there, and the Blackhawks are also on there. So the Blackhawks are like historically terrible, just a terrible team again. The Bulls are fine or whatever. Like, people just do not watch those in Chicago. Like, they're just not like the numbers come in and there's ratings and believe it or not, I know it's outside of wrestling and only wrestling fans care about ratings, but believe it or not, all sports organizations and media companies and all that stuff do care about ratings. But Yeah, it's like nobody watched it. Nobody is jumping through hoops to watch any of these teams. It's a really a historically bad boondoggle by Jerry Reinsdorf to put all this stuff
Bad idea.
behind this new channel and just not get it cleared from the major cable carrier, not make it easy to watch. I think it's still not available on YouTube TV, so some people fooled themselves into getting like Fubo or whatever, and then they finally said, all right, we understand that it's been very difficult to watch your teams. Do not worry. We're going to do an over-the-top. They're going over-the-top. It's like it's 2014. We're going over-the-top. You can buy, the Chicago Sports Network direct from us.
Right.
At $20 a month if you want to watch one team, and then like $45 a month if you want to watch all three teams. And everybody just said, fuck you. Get out of here.
So you can buy the channel on just an app.
Yes.
To watch the channel. But they're bilking you for each team.
Yes.
You can't even just buy. Oh my God.
So you can buy a full package, but I feel like the full package for the Bulls, Blackhawks, White Sox, and then all the other shit, it's like $50 or $45 or whatever, and then it's like $20 per team, and it's like per month, $20 per month per team. It's just like, fuck, I'm good, man.
Well, he's the only one doing it that way, because I know the FanDuel, who took over all the Bally Sports affiliates around the country, they're doing the same thing in a lot of these markets where you could just buy it and watch on the app. But for instance, the one with the Reds also comes with Cavaliers and Blue Jackets games, and it's just $20 a month. You just get the channel.
Yeah.
You don't have to, they're not upcharging you for each of the three teams.
Right.
This guy's really a piece of work.
Thank you. I agree, Joe. Thank you. Yes, he is.
That's ridiculous. I mean, the guy's like 92. And he just like, it doesn't have to be painful, right? Just,
wake up one day, go to bed,
or not.
Yeah. Go to bed one day and it just doesn't happen. Or
I'm saying my man is like 90. How much more money does he need?
I agree. A lot of people are hoping he one of these days sells the White Sox because, last hurrah, sell that to
he might not make it to the end of the deal. Like, those things take time.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I'm going to live pretty recklessly if I make 90.
If you're like extremely wealthy and 90 years old, yeah, I think
right. It's time to live recklessly. I mean, the government's going to take half that shit with their unfair inheritance tax anyway. So you may as well just spend it all.
Tax discussion with Joe. That's not why you called. That's all right. Let's get to the actual wrestling.
Tugging that collar? You want to talk inheritance tax and how unfair it is? No, you don't want to talk about that?
No, not really.
I mean, you're taxed on that money. You're already taxed when you earn that money. Now they're taxing you when you try to give it to your kids. It sounds pretty ridiculous.
I'm sure he's got trusts. And you don't think he's high? I think he's got it all figured out. I don't think.
I hope so.
I don't think Uncle Sam's dipping too much into the Reinsdorf fund anytime soon. But anyway. Anyway,
get that shit in Barbados or something.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think he's
keep those grubby government hands off it, is what I say.
Anyway, let's talk about some wrestling here. Here's what we're going to talk about on tonight's episode of the Flagship Podcast. We're going to get the latest in MLW. Yes, the world of MLW never stops. You all know that. We all know that. A lot of stuff going on in MLW. They got some good business going, some new signings, some decent stuff going on in MLW. A joint show with CMLL in Arena, Mexico. We're going to cover all that later. Roster movement, free agent news throughout the world of wrestling in the last week. It seems a lot of people have been moving and shaking. Mariah May, Saraya, Mina Shirakawa, Anthony Greene, the Nomad Bishop Dyer. We got some updates about him. We're going to talk about the Slam Dunk Collision ratings now that we have official numbers and quarter hours and all that stuff, plus the rumors of AEW and WBD doing a show around the NHL playoffs as well. We will unfortunately have to review AAA's Rey de Reyes 2025, which thankfully, I think, Joe, we only watched the last half of the show, right? The file that we could find was only the last half of the show. So you did not find the whole thing, correct?
I don't know. I watched what is available to me, and that was half the show.
That's perfectly fine. Nobody needs. I'm positive the one half of the show that we did not watch was not it was not great. I'm sure it sucked just as much as the second half sucked. CMLL had a big Arena Mexico show on Friday. We're going to talk about that one. A man has been unmasked, and then we'll start off this show this week though with the life and career of Bill Mercer. Now, Bill Mercer was a legendary pro wrestling announcer, best known, of course, for his time in World Class Championship Wrestling out of Texas. He passed away this week at the age of 99, which is just awful because, like, a week ago, I remember Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez were discussing the oldest living people involved that were involved in pro wrestling. And Dave was going through numbers and going through people. And he goes, you know who I forgot? Bill Mercer. He's 99. And Brian went, whoa, 99. Good for him. And then like 4 days later, he's dead. And I'm like, that's just brutal. That sucks. But 99 years old for Bill Mercer. And I think this will be a good time to talk a little bit about the legacy that he left in wrestling, as one of the main announcers of World Class during all their peaks and whatnot. And I think what's most notable about Bill Mercer, too, is obviously from a pro wrestling standpoint, we'll talk all about that. We'll talk about World Class. We'll talk about what he did there. He also had a notable career outside of professional wrestling as well as a broadcaster. This wasn't a wrestling announcer. This wasn't Michael Cole. This wasn't Corey Graves. This was a guy who was a legit newsman who then got into the world of wrestling, like many others at that time as well. He was not unique at that era. He's unique now. That would never happen anymore. But in his era, that was not unique to be a newscaster, whatever, and then move your way into doing professional wrestling. And he was notable for doing a lot of Dallas area news stuff. The famous story that has been making the rounds this week is that he was the one that informed Lee Harvey Oswald that he was being charged with the murder of President Kennedy. Like, so if you hear that clip of Oswald, kind of humming and
they had a press conference with Oswald, which was bizarre. I mean, a press conference with, the accused murderer of the United States president, someone, either Oswald or someone in the room, says he hasn't been charged yet, and then you hear a voice stick a microphone in his face and say, "You have been charged."
Yeah, actually, Lee, you have been charged with the murder.
And Oswald says, like, what? And then he says again, "You have been charged, sir, with killing the president." And that's Bill Mercer. That's Bill Mercer, who not only broke that news to Lee Harvey Oswald himself, he broke it to the world, because he had a source in the police department who tipped him off that the paperwork had gone through and they were, in fact, going to charge him with the murder of Kennedy, and nobody else knew it at that point in time. So he not only broke it to Oswald himself, he broke it to the world, which is very significant. A few years ago, I think CBS News did a whole special with Mercer, who was he died at 99, but he was still out there well into his 90s. He was at the...
and with it, too. Yeah, he was very with it. I saw an interview with him just last year, and he was as sharp as ever. Yeah,
he was at the premiere for, what was the Von Erich movie?
Iron Claw. Iron Claw.
He was at the Iron Claw premiere, and he is portrayed in that movie briefly. He was at the Iron Claw premiere a couple years ago, and he like you said, he's been doing interviews really right up into recent days. So he's, he was wheelchair ridden, of course, and he's fucking 99 years old, but his brain was still sharp. And like you said, he got his start as an actual real news person and sportscaster, like a lot of the guys of that era, in a lot of the territories. I think Bob Caudle came from, the Real World News, and Frank Bonema in Portland, I think, was a sports reporter or sports announcer in the Portland area. And then he died. I don't know about the guy who took over for Bonema, who took over for Frank Bonema in Portland after he died in 1982.
Oh, the guy, I'm watching him right now. What the hell is that dude's name?
Don Koss?
I think that's right. Let me make sure. Yeah, I'm watching him right now. I think it's Don Koss. Yeah,
I think Don Koss. I don't know his background, but
that's him. Yeah, definitely that's him.
Quick Google says he was a sportscaster. So
there he is. Perfect. Yeah.
One. And then you had obviously the Memphis guys were all television guys. Lance Russell and Dave Brown, even Corey Macklin later on was a weatherman or whatever. I think Bob Caudle was a weatherman too. So whether it was using the local weatherman, using the local sports broadcaster, using the local newsmen, that's how the territories would do it. Ed Whalen in Calgary is another one. Just about all the territories, or most of the territories, were using guys like this who had legit backgrounds. And Bill Mercer, he did it all. He packed a lot of life into those 99 years. He called every sport there was, and that's really where he got his start in Oklahoma, calling sports on the radio. And then they asked him to do pro wrestling, and he didn't know anything about pro wrestling. He wasn't a pro wrestling fan. So they brought him to a show and said, just come to a show and, we'll teach you some things. And he just watched the show and took notes. He said he didn't know the names of any of the holds. He just wrote down what he thought they looked like, right? And how he thought he would be able to describe them best on the radio. And then the next week they gave him the job, and he's calling pro wrestling on the radio in Oklahoma, just like he was calling all the other sports up there as a young sportscaster. And what happened was one of the guys from Oklahoma was down in Dallas visiting with some colleagues at one of the Dallas stations, and he overheard them talking about how they needed a new wrestling announcer for the television show. And this would have been in the 1960s now. He started in Oklahoma in the 50s, the late 50s. And his buddy was like, "Oh, I know a guy. He's the best wrestling commentator there is." And he kind of oversold him because he had only done it on the radio and he didn't know anything about it, but Mercer saw that as an opportunity to break into the Dallas market. So even though he was terrified because he had never done television and had very little experience in wrestling, he took the job. They offered him the job on the recommendation of his friend, and he went down there and he started calling wrestling on TV. And his philosophy on it was just, I'm going to call it like I call all the other sports. He knew it was a work. They smartened him up, but he was smartened up, but he wasn't privy to the finishes. He didn't, like when they got color, he knew there was an art to it, but didn't think too much about it or ask many questions. He just, if someone was bleeding, they were bleeding. And his philosophy was, I'm just going to call it like I'm calling a basketball game. And that's where he met Fritz von Erich. And Fritz obviously brought him back in the 80s and 82. And he was there from 82 to 87 as really the host of the show. Him and Mark Lawrence, really. It was those two.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Bill Mercer was really like the host. And because they would use real sports guys and real news reporters, it lended the show some credibility.
Yeah, it gave a gravitas to
Yes.
professional wrestling at the time, and those guys too, the Mercers and Lance Russell and Bob Caudle and those kind of guys, because they were grounded, normal newscasters. It's a different vibe than anything that exists in today's professional wrestling. Like it's so far from what today's professional wrestling announcers are, which so much of today's wrestling announcers are very wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're in on the show. We're in on the joke. We know that this is bullshit. You know, it's bullshit. You know what I mean? Like there isn't that sort of aura. They're laughing. They're snickering. They're just they're playing along with, oh, hey, we're in the circus with you. And look how this, that's not what it was like with guys like Mercer and guys like Lance Russell or whatever. They were relatively straight-laced newsmen that were kind of dropped into this wild world of wrestling. And what helped is it made the wild world of wrestling seem even more wild because you had this very normal human being. People that know this guy. They know Bill Mercer. You live in Dallas, you know Bill Mercer. That's the guy who calls Cowboys games on the radio, and he does news broadcasts or whatever. And here he is covering wrestling. And it's like, the way that those guys and Lance Russell was great about this too. Bill Mercer was great about this is, being very normal in this very, irregular, weird industry, but that made the wrestlers seem larger than life. It made the wrestlers seem like, oh my God, what is this cartoon? But like, what are these guys doing? These guys are absolutely insane. Like Bill Mercer having to go to Terry Gordy's house to interview him about the Freebirds turning on the Von Erichs. And it's like, these guys are just idiots. These wrestlers are just maniacs. And here's a normal human being that now is in their world and trying to interview them and talk to them. And that's Lance Russell too. Lance Russell would be like, oh, come on. I mean, he would just get flabbergasted all the time because these guys were talking over him and yelling and screaming and fighting. Yeah. And he was like, come on, what are we doing? Calm down. What is, stop.
I'll tell you what though, that was kind of the difference between Lance Russell and Bill Mercer. And really, I would throw Ed Whalen in there too. Ed Whalen and Lance Russell, they kind of leaned in a little more and understood that they were part of and could enhance the show. And I'm not knocking them at all. Who the hell would ever knock Lance Russell? I'm saying their styles were a little different though, where Mercer always kind of kept the same tone, no matter what kind of craziness was going on around him. Whether he was interviewing Terry Gordy outside of a van in the parking lot with Terry Gordy throwing elbow drops to the concrete, he still treated it like he was a newsman. He's just there to bring the news and to bring the show to you, the viewer.
Right. My job is to help present professional wrestling to you, the viewers at home. I'm not part of the show. Right. I don't want to be part of the show. I don't want to be a wrestler. I don't want to be. I'm a newsman. That my job is to cover professional wrestling for you.
I'm hosting the show.
Right.
And where Lance Russell would be like, "Oh, come on now, Jerry Lawler," when he would say something stupid. And there's nothing wrong with that either, because like you're saying, that would add a different element too, because it would be like, all right, the viewer knows and trusts Lance Russell or Dave Brown or Ed Whalen, and if they're getting bent out of shape over something, then we know this shouldn't be happening, right? Like, so there's that way to approach it. And then there was the Bill Mercer way, which was, I'm just a reporter. I'm just here to do my job. What happens around me isn't my concern necessarily. I'm not here to judge these guys or browbeat anyone. It's just what's happening is happening. I'm going to describe to you what's happening. And so that's where he was a little bit different than some of these other guys, despite all of them having very similar backgrounds. But yeah, he was first there in the 60s, and then he traveled all around. Like you said, he was the radio play-by-play man for the Cowboys. He called the Ice Bowl.
The Ice Bowl, yeah, big time game. One of the most historic football games of all time, 1967.
One of the most historic and famous NFL games and most important NFL games of all time. And he called the Ice Bowl on Dallas radio. And, when it comes to the Ice Bowl, there's no complete television version of that game known in existence. But what we do have are the complete audio versions, the radio versions of the game, both the Green Bay broadcast and the Dallas broadcast with Bill Mercer, who called it for local Dallas radio. So he not only called one of the most historical and important NFL games of all time, he has one of two versions of it that still exists today, because we don't have the full TV version.
Right. So when you get highlights of the Ice Bowl, or you hear highlights of the Ice Bowl, there's a relatively good chance that you're watching maybe some video over an audio clip of the radio broadcast of Bill Mercer calling it. But there's very little TV. It's one of those classic things. They just taped over it. It was like, well, that game's over. Let's tape over it. It's like, no one's ever going to want to watch this ever again. So we'll just, the TV stations just said, well, throw that tape in there and record over it. Because, yeah, it's 1967. They don't think that people in 2025 are going to want to watch the Ice Bowl ever again. So, yeah, they never thought of it. But, yeah, that's – I guess we shouldn't mention what that game is for people that might not know. I mean, it was – God, what was the temperature? It was in Lambeau Field in Green Bay on New Year's Eve. Cowboys versus Packers. Yeah, and it was like – I forget what they said the actual temperature was, but –
NFL title game. It was 15 below zero, and the wind chill was almost 50 below.
Yeah,
and the band couldn't play because you couldn't put their mouth on the instruments. The referee blew the whistle to start the game, and his mouth froze to the whistle, and he had to rip it, and it ripped the skin off of his lip. So the referees didn't use whistles for the game. They had to improvise and use audio, like audible signals, to stop the plays. It's just ridiculously cold. Frank Gifford, who was calling the game in the TV booth, his coffee froze in the booth. So it was Ray Scott called the first half and Jack Buck called the second half, and Frank Gifford was the color man, and Pat Summerall and Tom Brookshire were the sideline reporters, and they all just froze their ass off. And Bill Mercer talks about how cold it was too, and and he says how they chose to handle it was to inform the listener early in the broadcast how historically cold it was, and then just leave it at that. They didn't want to continually pound it home how cold it was. But what happened was the system that this is 1967. Okay, so there was a system in place in Lambeau Field to thaw the field when it was under these conditions. Well, the heating coils and all that broke, and they malfunctioned. So when they took the cover off the field, there was this thin layer of water, and then as it got later in the evening, it all froze, and then they were literally playing on a sheet of ice.
Yeah.
When the water froze, which is how it got called, dubbed the Ice Bowl. Several players got frostbite as a result of the game. It was just, and again, it's the NFL championship game. Now, I believe this was to determine who went to either Super Bowl 1 or 2. Super Bowl 2.
I think 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at this point in history, the NFL championship game was still a more important and meaningful game than the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was kind of still a sideshow because
the NFL was the lesser league,
the
at
little
that time.
brother.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until Super Bowl 3 the next year when the Jets beat the Colts that the Super Bowl became the most important game.
Right, because then the AFC, or the AFL, I should say, then proved, we can compete on, because at this time it was the NFL was the granddaddy of professional football, and this little startup AFL, that's the Super Bowl was a combination of the AFL versus the NFL, and this kind of, like you said, a sideshow game of, okay, the NFL's champion has won, but they'll let the AFL team come in and see what they can do or whatever. But
it was the champion of two separate leagues. And
right.
The merger hadn't happened yet.
Correct.
I don't even know if I'd come up with a comp. I guess it would be like if the XFL champion would play the Super Bowl champion, and it would be again,
or like maybe Major League Baseball is like World Series champion goes to Japan and faces the champion there or whatever
comp you want to come up with. But it's like the obviously, if you did football, the Super Bowl would still be the more important game than the game against the XFL champion, because nobody takes it seriously because they couldn't win, right? Until the Jets proved that they could. And then the merger happened a year later. A lot of people think the merger happened right away. It didn't. It happened a year later. But then the AFL became the AFC and the NFL became the NFC under the NFL banner. And then the Super Bowl became the most important game. But this game was still in the era when the NFL championship was more important than the Super Bowl. So Bart Starr scoring on that quarterback sneak from the 1 yard line, which is arguably the most historic play in NFL history. Okay. That was called by Bill Mercer in the booth calling the game for the Cowboys. And it's a historical call. That play does exist on film. Thankfully we just don't have the entire game. To our knowledge, unless somebody has it in their basement somewhere. It's got
to be in someone's basement somewhere. But man, 1967 is a little early to even have a home VHS.
Yeah,
so it's got to be in some TV station. Yeah, it had to be some TV station that would have it.
TV station might have some TV affiliate somewhere, might have it on a reel.
67, man, that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows if it'll even be workable if we do find a copy of it, or it'd have to be some super tech savvy civilian who happens to have it. But it's high. The more the years pass, the more unlikely it is that, we'll ever have a complete copy of that. But yeah, he called one of the most historic American sporting events of all time from the radio booth. He called White Sox games.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Briefly
with Harry Carey, who he was friends with, and I think was it the 74 season?
74. Yeah, 74 was White Sox.
Yes, he called Major League Baseball games, and then there was an ownership change, and they fired everybody, including him, and he went back to Texas. He called all the sports for University of North Texas. He called football, basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball for North Texas for a number of years. And that's when he got hooked back up with Fritz von Erich and got hooked back up with wrestling. But he called major college sports. He called the NFL. He called Major League Baseball. He covered the Kennedy assassination. I mean, he called sports on the radio. The guy, he did it all in broadcasting. So this is really much more than, someone who was specifically a wrestling announcer. This was someone who was very well known in the Dallas area. And as he said, he would go out with friends on vacations and all over the world, and people would recognize him because World Class at its peak was syndicated everywhere. It had syndication in Boston, was one of the big cities. And obviously very famously in the Middle East, Israel and Jordan and all those Middle Eastern countries that were getting world-class wrestling and paying for the tapes. And Fritz had himself, he had a nice little expansion going there for that brief window of time. And Bill Mercer was really the voice of it all. He called the Cotton Bowl for many years when the Cotton Bowl was a big deal. And just a wonderful life and career, and just a classy man in every way. You hear him talk in these interviews and the way he speaks, and he doesn't really, he could really talk. This is a person who came from legit news into not just the wacky world of pro wrestling, but to Fritz von Erich's pro wrestling in the 80s. Forget Fritz's insanities, but he was around Gino Hernandez, and he was around Chris Adams, and he was around all these psychopaths, and he was there when all of these people died tragically, the suicides and all the tragedy with the Von Erich family, and Gino Hernandez possibly being murdered in his condo, and And, and he'd have to come on the air, and he was the one who would have to break this news to the viewers.
Yeah.
In the pre-internet age, you're a wrestling fan, you turn on the wrestling. That's when you find out that Gino Hernandez, who just did an angle with Chris Adams, and now he's dead. And Bill Mercer would be the one that would have to convey that. And he was really the perfect person to announce the death of David Von Erich and Gino Hernandez and all of these guys, because he had that legit news background, and he treated it like a news story, and the people in Dallas respected him. And then the show would have to go on because it was Fritz.
Well, and one of the big reasons why I think World Class lost a lot of trust in that era, in the late, now we're talking 80, 86, 87, that area, really 85, 86, 87, where it's really just rapidly deteriorating in terms of popularity. And what's going on is that they started weaving those real life deaths into storylines or whatever. And that's when you have 4 straight years of, World Class winning, the Wrestling Observer most disgusting promotional tactic by having, a real newsman go out there and try to pretend that, Gino Hernandez dying is exactly the same as Chris Adams being blind, or Mike Von Erich, he's not dead, folks, so make sure you come to buy tickets to see him. He's not dead, we promise he's alive. It's just really, really weird stuff. And I think he was already gone by the time that Fritz did the fake heart attack, I believe. He was gone by
what
then.
Year was that?
That was 88, and I just covered that on this Patreon not that long ago.
Mercer was left in 87.
Okay, so he wasn't there for that, thank God, because that would have been even. But that's another big reason why, when and Dave Meltzer's written about this a lot and talked about it in Old Observers, that's what really started deteriorating the trust that the viewers had with World Class, when they thought, okay, Bill Mercer is announcing something. This has gravitas. This is real. This is a real news guy. And now he's getting involved, and they're making him talk about stuff that's not, mixing, real life tragedies with storylines and stuff. And that's when Fritz had just completely lost the plot. And by that point, World Class is spinning its wheels and about to go, go away in just a couple of years here. And that's really a big reason why, is that, putting Bill Mercer, somebody that was as respected as he was, in the position to really kind of lie to the audience, it really eroded a ton of trust, because that was a person they trusted, and that was a voice they trusted, and Fritz took advantage of that and just had him blatantly lie to the audience. And that's another thing that we talk about with these old school announcers, and the fact that they were newsmen in this wrestling world. These guys didn't really lie to the audience. They were just, like you said, they were presenting the show and explaining what's happening, what you're seeing on the air, and that's it. That's what their job was. Their job wasn't to really, work with an entire storyline or pretend that they were in on the story. They were, I'm a normal man in this wild world, and I'm going to tell you what's happening, and that's it. That's the only thing I'm going to do. Whereas, obviously today's announcers are completely in line with what the stories are, completely in line with the work, and completely in line with all that. And that's just not what these guys were. And Bill Mercer is a great example of a newsman brought into this wild world of wrestling, and he's just going to explain what the hell's going on to you, the audience.
Ed Whalen used to lose his mind when he felt things got too out of control in Calgary, to the point he would almost break kayfabe. He'd get upset, because I think he was working for the network or even running the network at that time. I'd have to look it up. But there were several instances where he felt things got out of control with certain angles, and he would go on rants on television about it and get pissed off about it, because he felt it was disrespecting the station and disrespecting the viewers and all of that. So it was just a completely different mindset. And we stopped hiring that kind of guy to do this job. I mean, you have Joe Galley, I guess, with the NWA. He has a regular news job. And outside of that, it's a different business, and we're getting the announcers in different ways. They're usually just people coming up through the business. WWE, they tend to use people who flame out as wrestlers a lot of the time, whether it's Byron Saxton or Corey Graves with his concussion issues, or, oftentimes, retired wrestlers or whatever.
Wade Barrett is a good.
Yeah, he's another example, and I guess they have tried a lot of guys who have come from sports over the years, and a lot of those guys have come in and out. Your Todd Grishams and people like that. And Michael Cole, he went to Syracuse, right? Like they all do.
I think he was briefly a CNN guy, but I'm not putting him on the news level of.
No, I consider Michael
Mercer.
Cole a wrestling lifer.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have a significant career outside of wrestling, but some of those guys they bring in, there's a whole host of them, like Alex Del Barrio. I forget what his name was in WWE.
Arda Orcal. Remember Arda Orcal was there for a little bit too.
Yes. And
as Kyle, what was it? Kyle. It was some generic ass name. I forget what it was now.
Yeah. And those guys all did sports both before and after WWE. And even guys like Craig DeGeorge, I think Craig Minervini is still the Marlins sideline reporter for the local.
Holy shit. Really?
I think if he isn't, he stopped recently because I remember seeing him very recently still doing that job. Let's see if we can get it. Craig Minervini. I don't know how to spell that, but I guess we can get it close enough. See, it's a race to the Google here.
Yeah, it looks like he is. Yeah, he's the studio host for Bally Sports, Miami Marlins and Florida Panthers.
Yeah. So I didn't know about the Florida Panthers, but
was he like obviously 8 years old when he was doing? Because he looks not that much different than he did. Was he like 7 years old when he was Craig DeGeorge? I know he was young, but
he's probably in his 20s. He was probably in his 20s. I mean, the disgusting amount of baseball I watch, I see him all the time. On the Marlins broadcasts. He's been there for years. He's
with this perfect Syracuse voice. I don't even know if he went to Syracuse, but I know he went to Syracuse.
Probably.
Yeah. I have this Syracuse voice. I'm Craig DeGeorge here on WWF broadcast. Yeah.
Here you go, Craig Minervini, while attending Syracuse
of course,
University.
Yeah. He has the Syracuse voice, no doubt about it. Yeah.
For the Syracuse Chiefs and finished third place in a Marv Albert satellite contest at Madison Square Garden. So there you go.
Yeah.
And then after he graduated Syracuse, he got a job with WWF and used the name Craig DeGeorge, borrowing his mother's maiden name. So, Craig Minervini still out there. He's probably, what was that? The mid 80s. That's what?
Yeah.
40 years ago. He's probably in his mid to late 60s. Right. Because he got in right after he graduated college. So he was in his early 20s. Right.
That makes sense then.
So he's like 65 or something, probably something like that. 63, 65. Looks good though. He don't look it. Not from what
enjoying that Florida sun. Yeah, he's good looking.
Those guys, they all get the fake teeth now. Everybody does
the veneers. That. Yeah.
They get the veneers. Everyone has the veneers. He probably dyes his hair, but that's the TV game, man. You can't let it slip. Yeah, so Bill, Mercer, whenever I hear that that world, you think of Bill Mercer. Yeah, and then and then he welcomes you to the sportatorium and he sets you up for the show. He lets you know that Al Madrill is going to be in our opening contest. We got a big main event for you later. The world 6-man tag team champions, Mike David and Kerry are going to defend against whoever the fuck. And we've got H&H Associates, Armand Hussein, and Gary Hart are here this week with the Magic Dragon and the Great Kabuki, and away we go. That's Bill Mercer. I associate him with that. First, from coming home from school when it was on ESPN, right? Because I was that age where I'd come home from school and the old world class tapes would be on ESPN. They would have the tapes from the hot period, but they were airing them, 7-8 years later for whatever reason, right? And that was my first exposure to world class. And then later on, obviously, when I started watching tapes and tape trading and all that, and, obviously that era of world class, when you first become a smark and you want to, that you go right to that era.
That's the first thing. When WWE Network started, this. Yeah. The first thing I watched was that era. I watched Christmas Day, 82, and then watched all of 1983 world class. Like immediately, the first thing I got on the network, I was like, fuck yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. And that's Bill Mercer. He was there from 82 to 87. He got there right when it got hot. And he was out the door right when it cooled off, so everyone associates that era with him. And to a lesser extent, Mark Lawrence, who is also still alive. And I think he does he's a pastor or something, some church in the Dallas area. From what I understand, he doesn't really like to discuss wrestling much anymore. I think he did a couple shoot tapes or whatever. And now he tries to stay. He just doesn't want anything to do with it. I don't know what his deal is. Maybe he's just so put off looking at everything in hindsight, who knows? But, Bill Mercer, though, when he left wrestling, he stopped following wrestling and he stopped being involved in wrestling. And, but he was always still, he was always still open to discussing wrestling and his time in wrestling. So, there's a bunch of shoot interviews with him out there. High Spots has one that's readily available. I'm sure that, title match now. Title that they do. They have one as well. That's full length on YouTube. So if you want to hear sort of a different kind of wrestling, long form wrestling interview where it's not, it's not centered around dirt and guys putting themselves over and telling stories of questionable accuracy and things like that. I did listen to bits and pieces of some of the ones that he has out there, and it's about his interesting life more than anything else. And then his perspective on the wrestling in a hot period, in a hot territory where there was a lot of controversial shit going on, the perspective of someone who was kind of an outsider, but also inside, you know what I mean? So, it's very insightful from that standpoint. And he has, and like you said earlier, he had a real sharp memory right until the end.
Mm-hmm.
He's not one of these guys where when they ask him questions, he doesn't remember people and he doesn't remember things. He remembers everything, and he's got opinions.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be led through these interviews. There's some of these interviews, some of these shoot interviews you listen to, and it's with a really old dude or whatever, and the interviewer will essentially, the guy will ask a question, and then the guy will be like, he's like, yeah, no, you worked against this guy and that. Oh yeah. No, it's none of that. I mean, he's sharp. He knows his shit. You ask him the question, he can answer it. So it was pretty remarkable to go back and listen. Like I said, I watched one from, it had to just be a couple years ago. I forget which one it was, but it was only just a couple years ago. And I was like, this guy is really sharp for being at least in his mid 90s. Like, I'm positive he had to be in his mid 90s at that point. And yeah, he looked pretty decent for, hell, if I look that good when I'm 95 years old and I'm that sharp when I'm 95, that'll be pretty damn good.
It always came across like the consummate gentleman too. Just, classy guy who, who came from outside wrestling, did a couple stints in wrestling, made a very good mark. Look, I liked his work. I found him to be a really nice change of pace and a real calming anchor in a wild world of world class around that time. Where it's just this straight-laced, business-like news reporter hosting the show. And was he great at calling the action? No, he wasn't
No, he didn't know what the moves were. He just called every move, basic stuff. But he learned enough. He portrayed enough to the audience. It was okay. It
really wasn't his role. He was more there, like you said. They had gravitas to things, and really he never wanted to be part of angles or take bumps or anything like that. And they never really did that with him. But you could only imagine if they had, and he had been up for it, how that would have gotten over with a heel beating somebody like him up. And that was a pretty common thing that they would try in territories a lot. And that's something else that's been kind of burnt out now, where it doesn't have the same effect that it would have had, where if someone attacked like Lance Russell, I mean, the heat that would have gotten, or if someone would have attacked Bill Mercer, because these were respected figures that people recognized in the community. And they weren't part of the crazy pro wrestling show. They were just worked for the pro wrestling show and hosted the show and brought it to you on fucking Saturday mornings or whatever.
Right. And I think that's an important thing. And I'm watching that as I'm going through this Tour of the Territories series on Flagship Patreon. But the idea was, there is a TV studio and a TV station and TV announcers, and they're giving this time to the wrestling. There's a wrestling show that's taking place in this TV thing, and it's a small distinction. It's a weird distinction. If you don't watch territory wrestling, you didn't watch wrestling of that era, it might be hard to explain. But if you know, and if you watch, you watch. It's like nowadays everyone's in on it. You know what I mean? Everyone's in on it. You're watching a production of this wrestling company with these wrestling announcers who work for this wrestling company, and all the wrestlers work for it, and all the cameramen work for it.
Their characters on the show.
Right. And this, territory wrestling, it just feels like, all right, here's my local television station that's giving TV time to this band of fucking maniacs that come on here once every Saturday and do a bunch of maniacal shit for an hour, and then tell you to come to this arena on Tuesday to come watch them do more maniacal shit. And it's just different. There's just something different about it, where it's like not everyone's in on it. The idea is that the cameraman, the production guys, the announcers, not everybody's in on this. Like the TV station, the manager of the TV station's not in on it or whatever. It's all a little different, and they just happen to give this TV time to this organization of people that would come in and do these shows. And it made, like I always bring that up, is that it made the wrestlers feel larger than life. It made these wrestlers feel like, oh my God, these guys are fucking insane. And it really helped that you saw normal people around this world of insanity, and that made the insanity seem that much better. Whereas now it's everyone's in on the joke, everyone's wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Everyone knows it's all bullshit or whatever, and there's just something a little different about it being a regular ass TV studio with regular ass announcers calling this stuff and presenting it to you, the audience, as what can you believe what's going on in front of me? Like look at what's going on, look at what's happening here, and I think that's just so much more important than I think today, where again everyone's just kind of in on the joke is the best way to describe it, and I think it loses something from that, is that the announcers don't feel and like you have sports announcers that do wrestling, like you said, and right now we're seeing it with WWE. You have Joe Tessitore or whatever, who comes from the real sports world, but he's not that kind of guy. He's bombastic and he's part of the show just as much as a Michael Cole would be. So it doesn't have that same sort of feel of, oh, here's this normal guy calling this. He just feels like a mercenary that's just whatever you pay him to call.
Thing to that now, though, because typically when they bring in guys like that, they're more, Tessitore is a big name. They bring in younger, unknown guys, and then they hire them to exclusively work for them.
Yeah.
And then they go back into sports after they get rid of them. Jonathan Coachman's another example. Tessitore is still doing real sports. He's still doing boxing. He's still doing college football. Ironically enough, hardcore sports fans don't like Tessitore because they think he's too overly dramatic.
Yeah, I agree.
Think he's too bombastic. They think he tries too hard to make everything a moment. And these are all qualities that you can see why WWE likes him.
Yes.
And why they hired him. Because he's so over the top and bombastic and so overly dramatic. And it's like, Joe, calm down. It's a touchdown in a 31-14 game with 2 6-4 teams. You don't have to treat it like it's like Bart Starr scoring in the Ice Bowl. But that's his style of broadcasting, and that's why he got hired, because he's perfect for the world of wrestling. So he is a little different. He isn't that calming, real-world presence, the name you trust because he covered the Kennedy assassination. He's a bombastic guy that they brought in. He's one step below Pat McAfee, really.
Exactly.
He's not as over the top as McAfee, but he's in the same mold as McAfee. It's in the same genre, even if he's not as goofy and over the top as Pat is. So that's kind of the slight difference there. But Bill Mercer was 99, and I guess that would make Cowboy Bob Ellis the oldest living person that was part of the wrestling business, right? At least that we're aware of.
Well, on the CMLL show, we had Salvador Lutheroth, junior or the third, or I forget where he is in the league. He's 100. And he looks pretty good.
Cowboy Bob Ellis? He's got to be in his hundreds, right?
Ellis. Let's see where Cowboy Bob Ellis is. He is, as far as I can tell, 96. Cowboy Bob Ellis.
Okay. All right. Well, then he would be number 2, I would think.
I think it's this. I think this Lutheroth has got to be. Now, I didn't even know he was still alive, but then they brought him out on the CMLL show. That's pretty damn good for being, 100 years old or whatever he is. So that, I guess him and Cowboy Bob Ellis. I forget. Dave had a couple other people that he mentioned, but there were some names that I didn't even recognize who they were. Probably just smaller territory dudes or whatever. But Bob Ellis at 96 is pretty damn close. For America, he's got to be one of the.
So this would be a son of the original Salvador Lutheroth?
Yes.
That's who this is?
Yeah.
Who's still alive?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So would have been born in the early 1920s or something, I guess.
Yeah, which is a pretty crazy lineage. I like this because the original Salvador Lutheroth was what was he born in 1897,
right?
And that's his father, and this guy is still hanging around here at 100 years old. But yeah, I'm trying to see exactly when he was born.
Salvatore Lutheroth Jr.
Yes,
would be the son, right?
Yes.
And yeah, I wasn't aware that he would still be alive. But he hasn't run it for many years, right? I mean,
no. Yeah, it's been, I think, 30, 40 years maybe. I think he stopped running it.
Yeah, very long time. Yeah. So.
Yeah, okay. So he retired in 1987, and Paco Alonso took over in 1987.
Right. The son retired in 87.
Yes, the son. Yes, sorry. The
Salvador Lutheroth.
Yeah, that one, he retired in like the mid-50s or whatever. It was a long time ago for him. Again, his
man
was born in 1895 or 1897 or whatever.
He died. The Salvador Lutheroth died in 1987. So, yeah, that he must have been out of control for many years even prior to that.
Yeah. So then when he passed away, his son gave control to the original. So the original Salvador Lutherot, his grandson is Paco Alonso, and he took over in 1987 when Salvador Lutherot Jr. retired.
Right.
So there you go. But the fact I did not know he was alive either, and then they brought him out, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And again, he looked pretty damn good for being 100. Again, if I look like that when I'm 100, I'm doing things well. I don't want to really see 100 though. That's too old. I don't want to be 100.
That depends. Am I still sharp? I mean, I'll take it if I could still.
I guess. I guess if I'm sharp, like, and he didn't seem like I know he was like, I think he was in a wheelchair, and he seemed like he was okay. Like, he didn't seem like he couldn't walk at all. I'm sure he doesn't, sure he's not jogging around the block or whatever, but I guess.
I'm if I can think clear and feed myself.
I don't know if I want to be in the chair though. I think I'm good when I can't walk anymore. I think I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the chair at a certain age. At a certain age, maybe I don't want to walk around anymore anyway.
I mean, you don't walk around that much anyway, right now. So.
Maybe I want you wheeling me around, right?
You're not exactly the most mobile man these days, so yeah, it's probably not a big problem. As long as
I'm not a big fan of fucking walking around now.
As long as you can get up and down the stairs, and they have those, they have the little lifts. You can just get one of those lifts to get up and down the stairs. You're good to get to the den.
Well, when you can't walk anymore.
Yeah. You get those little wheelchair. You get
wheelchair lifts.
Yeah. So that's fine. If you could do that, you're good.
Sure. I'm saying I just want to be able to think clear and feed myself.
That would be yeah. If I don't shit myself and I can eat
someone to feed you, that's all right. Maybe it's time to tap out. Right.
I agree.
It depends. Do the Rams and the Reds have a little open championship window? I want to stick around for the rest of that.
Stick around for a little longer, yeah.
But once we hit the rebuild, then
maybe
it's time to check out.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a healthy way to look at it. But anyway,
I think about that sometimes. What season am I gonna die in the middle of? And do you ever think about things like that? I'm like,
no, not to that level. No, that
sometimes.
Imagine how tortured you'd be if it's like
a great year. That's
it's like October. It's like early October, and you're like, all right, the Reds, they just won 115 games, and they got the playoffs start, and then you're like, burp. It's just like, fuck, man, come on.
Because I'm gonna die in the middle of some season, unless it's February, right? Like, so it's like, I think about that. Like, am I gonna die in a late October when the Rams are like 8-1 and looking good? That's gonna be annoying. Right? I think about these things, it's like, I don't want to die in the middle of a 600 winning percentage Red season.
No, you're going to die during the NLCS or whatever. They're up 2 games to 1 and you're like, oh, fuck.
I'm not even taking it that far. Like, dying in the middle of the playoffs would be just beyond brutal. But I mean, just in the middle, like, I often think, like, am I going to die in the middle of a season? And if I do, can they at least be like 25-37? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to die when they're like 40-23 and they're 7 games up on the Brewers.
Right. Surging into the All-Star break or whatever.
Right. Yeah. With, I think about those things, ideally it'll be like in February or something though, or early March or something when it's between the two sports. So that would be the ideal time. Is this a weird conversation? You don't think about stuff like this?
I don't think about it ever, but no, it's not weird. I know you think about death a lot, so it's fine. We're working through this
constantly, never stop.
I hate to bring it up, so
yeah.
But you're not. I don't think I would say I don't hate to bring it up. It's not a sensitive subject for you because you're more than open to talk about it. You just think about it a lot.
But sometimes I get the night terrors. Like, I'll toss and turn in bed sometimes when it's quiet and dark. And I'm just like, she'll be like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm going to die someday. Like
right.
It freaks me out like at times like that. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
Right now I can discuss it with you and it doesn't bother me or scare me, but it scares me in the night.
Yeah. See, that's why you always have to have something on the TV so you can't be in your own thoughts ever. You just automatically, always have to deflect. Yeah. That's why you got to put a game on. Put a game on, Joe, and then you can deflect.
I always have a game on. My father was the same way. He'd have to go take walks like at 2 a.m. sometimes. He'd wake up and like start thinking about death, and he'd like, I got to go take a walk. And he'd go fucking walk around the block at 2:00 a.m. just to clear it, like to try to get it out of his head. And unfortunately, I inherited that from him because I'm the same way. I just think about it, I love life and I love living.
Well, start taking walks. Start doing those night walks. That sounds like a great idea.
I'd love to live forever. I think life is great. I mean, everything about life is awesome. I don't want it to end. Fucking living's great. Eating good food, fucking watching sports. Banging the wife. These are great things. Like talking
to me for 3 hours.
Yeah. The wrestling sometimes is really good, and when it's great, it really hits. It's hanging out with the kids and watching them grow and fucking around with them. And I don't know. Petting the cat, this fucking cat.
Maggie
I don't know
Moo?
if you heard me. Yeah. I don't know if you heard me earlier, but I let out this little yelp. I tried to cover because I'm sitting here at the table and I wasn't aware. I didn't know she was sitting on a chair next to me and I can't see her. And she randomly just swatted me with her fucking claw, with her claw out, and I'm like, what the fuck, goddamn cat! I'm trying to do a worldwide broadcast here, and this cat, I guess she's annoyed because I started doing the podcast, and maybe I woke her up because she's still laying there, and she just gave me a fucking swat because that's how cats operate, and I wasn't expecting that because I didn't know she was there, but yeah, this little fucker, so yeah, I don't know, so I think about it. I think about, man, what season is it going to be in?
Right.
There's some poor fucker.
What kind of player is my roster? Who's on my roster? Yeah.
Because there's some poor fucker who was a Boston Red Sox fan their whole goddamn life, and they died in September of 2004. There's many people.
Oh yeah. It was a cottage industry for the Chicago newspapers to write about someone's poor grandmother or grandfather that just wanted so badly the Cubs to win a World Series, and they never did. And then when they finally won that year, it was like every day there was a new article of like, this person from this Chicago suburb, their grandfather died in 2007 and they never got to see a World Series victory. It's just like, oh God, yeah, it's so terrible to think about.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's really depressing to think about, So I just wonder those things. What's it going to be like? I mean, am I going to be so sick and bedridden that I'm not going to be concerned with trivial things like that, or is it just going to be sudden and then that'll really bother me in the afterlife? Because what if there is an afterlife, and what if that afterlife you're not able to be privy to what's going on in the natural world?
Oh, what's going on down there? Yeah, you're like, so what's the deal with the Reds? What's the deal with the Reds? And they're like,
right,
no,
I'm
don't
gonna
worry
want to
about
know.
that.
Like,
you have so much good, it's unbelievable. You're in heaven. It's great. I don't know if you're going to. I don't know. Is Joe Lanza going to heaven? I don't know.
Of course, I'm a great guy. Why wouldn't I be going to heaven?
I think you're going to heaven if you are. I don't believe in any of it, so it's fine. But
neither do I. But
yeah.
if it does exist, I don't see why I wouldn't.
I think you got to be in the top half. If there's like
nothing but good things.
Yeah, if it's like a curved thing, I think you're probably on the good side versus the bad. But anyway, it's like, you're up there.
You don't think I'm in the top half? Come on.
No, you're in the top half for sure. I just
That's
said that.
how it works.
Yeah, I think so.
What have I ever done? Give me a break.
It's got to be curved. It's got, because no one can be truly that good, so it's got to be curved. No. You got to be like, well, come on, that guy's way worse than me. And they're like, yeah, you're right. Come on in. You're fine. Yeah. Like, look at all these people. All these dudes are way worse than me. Come on, you got to let me in. So, yeah, it's like this beautiful utopia or whatever, and you're like peeking through the clouds to be like, so what's going on? Are the Reds,
Yeah. Because
you're floating in the sky, and there's clouds and sunlight, and you're like, what's the sun? What the fuck? What are the Reds doing?
Or just your consciousness continues to exist, but in a state that we can't even fathom with our, you know what I mean? Like, our consciousnesses could continue to exist, but in a state that we can't even conceptualize or fathom.
This is getting too deep.
Maybe, right, and then maybe we're unable to know what's still happening in the natural world, and that would be frustrating as hell. To die in the middle of a good season, to die at like week 8, and then not be able to know what happened against the Niners in week 9. Even though it's happening,
but still be conscious in one way or another. Yeah.
Joe, would you like to know? Your daughter, she's pregnant with. Forget that. What happened against the Niners in week 9?
Right.
We'll get to the grandchild I never met later. I need to know. if we beat the Niners in week 9, please. You know,
would you be okay with let's say spirits exist and souls exist? Would you be okay with being able to float into this world and still be able to kind of, I guess, watch the games? Like, you can't talk to anybody about it, you can't celebrate with anybody,
right?
But you can kind of, you can get to the den. You know what I mean? You can get to the den. I suppose your daughter, your son, they're watching the Reds or whatever, they're watching the Rams or whatever, and you can just kind of sit on that couch. Watch the Rams with them, but not react with them, not talk with them, but you're kind of in this other world. Maybe you can knock over a bowl to let them know how excited you are about the Rams. One of those things.
That would be fucking incredible.
Okay, you'd be cool with that.
Oh my God, that's like, I wouldn't even be scared of death anymore. Like, I'd still want to live a long time while my body's healthy and to be with the people I love and all that shit. But I wouldn't be scared of the end anymore. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if I could be assured that there's some form of consciousness beyond this life, I will no longer fear death. What I fear about death is everything ending.
The great unknown, and the end.
The great, not even necessarily, the unknown at least offers hope. I take the unknown. What I can't wrap my head around and what I cannot deal with is my belief that when you die, everything's over, you cease to exist, you are no longer conscious, and it's an eternal state of nothingness. That drives me insane. That's why I fear it. If you guaranteed me that wasn't the case, I wouldn't fear it anymore. I might fear the pain of dying or being away from the people I love or things like that, but I wouldn't have this massive existential fear of everything being over, which is the part that bothers me more than anything. So, yes, what you're proposing, I would accept. On the other hand, I think it'd be a little weird because, like, are people that you know who are dead, like, are they in the room while we're, like, jacking off or picking our nose?
Right, you got to think about that.
That would be really weird, And I think about that all the time.
Got to think of a grandmother being like, I'm going to go see what Joe's doing. And you're just there, just racking it. And she's like, oh, God.
I'm just beating it like it owes me money.
Right. And you don't have unlimited amounts of these. Like, you only have a certain amount of these where you're like, I'm going to go see what's going on with my grandchildren. Like, what's Joe up to? It's just... Yeah. What's little Joe up to? And you're just absolutely to just the weirdest porn too. You're like page 8 on the Pornhub, and it's like,
you're page 8 in a new category that you're
right. You're like, why am I doing this? Oh, come on.
Yeah, the kind of category where as soon as you have that post-orgasm clarity, you're like, I am disgusted.
I hope that nobody saw this. Yes, and unfortunately, your grandmother has seen this. Yeah.
Why am I watching this? How was I able to sustain a boner? I am disgusted with myself right now. Yeah, of course that would be it. Of course that would be it. So on the other hand, that'd be a little weird. Because if we could just drop in and watch a fucking Rams-Niners game, then we're dropping in all the time. I don't want people watching me. Like, forget stuff like that. Even I don't want people watching me like in the shower when I take the thing down and I'm like washing out my butthole with the spray knot. Like, the awkward position of it, like I don't want people watching that, even just like
that's
like
on them. I'm going to say that's on them if they're coming into the shower with you. That's on the souls and the ghosts or whatever. I'm not going to. Get mad
that's
at
a
them.
Good point.
That's on that. But if you're just on the couch and they're like, let's go see what Joe's watching, and you're cranking it to some page 8 Pornhub stuff, then that's on you. Well, that's on you, not on them. So think about that every time you're cranking it. Well, you can't because you're in Texas anymore. So I don't know what weird ass website you use. Your weird ass websites might be page 1 with the weird ass shit.
Oh my God,
at this point.
The shit that I got to use for porn these days.
You're probably page 1. Like, what the fuck? All right, well, whatever. We don't have that much time, so we'll just do this. It's fine. Yeah,
this is all I got. It's gonna have to work.
Right. Yeah. See, I a man of class in Illinois. I can get to page 8 in Pornhub and then feel bad about myself. You're right out of the gates. You're just like, fuck. All right, well, this is it. Yeah.
Even the normal categories bring up some bizarre shit. It's it's like, let me put boobs into the search bar, and it's just not normal boobs. It's got to be boobs popping balloons or something. It's just something ridiculous because it's these sketchy sites. Everyone has a European accent, but not even the sexy kind.
No, it's like Moldovan Eastern or whatever. You're like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, like, I'm already halfway through, so I'm just going to keep it going, but this is just bizarre, yeah.
Eastern European, like that Eastern European face that all the guys have, and you just
you can tell.
They all look like Fedor Emelianenko and Mirko Krokop.
Right, they all have buzz cuts, and they're just like,
they always have that face, that Croatian face. And,
right, it's like, man.
Just even the women too, they just don't look like English speaking women.
Right.
And
it doesn't help too that they're fucking in like it's just cinder blocks and like gray, and you're like, what is this? Is this an apartment?
It's
like,
awful, and the video quality. It was shot in 2003 with 1995 equipment, right? It's got that look to it. And it's just bad. But that's what I have to roll with now. It's hard for me.
Ash Jacob in the chat with a great, always wearing black socks.
Always leaving the socks on every time.
So many socks.
Every time. And see, with the sites that I got to use, I can't just find a nice, wholesome 8-minute clip from Brazzers. I can't find that.
Oh, no, you get like, you're at the 55-minute and you got to scroll through and shit, right?
No, it's just like those aren't even available. Like, you can't just find your popular porn stars on fucking Naughty America on the sites that I'm like the Naughty America 8-minute clip or the classic 8-minute Brazzers clip, just the normal and the one that they're using to try to sell you the ad to the site, but they'll give you 8 minutes of the 40-minute, like the normal standard ass, I can't, the sites that I'm able to access in Texas don't even have those. It's all sketchy Eastern European shit is what it is. And if I'm lucky, maybe I'll get some British stuff. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Maybe I can find some fucking Fake Taxi or something. Or some Bluebird Films, whatever the fuck it's called. Maybe I can find some of that. But it's brutal. It's hard out here in the porn streets with these restrictions. It's tricky. So, but again, Bill Mercer brought us to this somehow. This is where Bill Mercer brings us.
Like World Class, we also deteriorated into something that was unrecognizable from what we once were doing. So, rest in peace, Bill Mercer, 99 years old.
When we cut this obit for YouTube, we're gonna leave this part off of the Bill Mercer.
I think I'm gonna leave that part. Yeah, we'll have. Hopefully, there's a nice break, and I can go right to the part where we say, "Rest in peace, legendary pro wrestling announcer Bill Mercer, 99 years old," and then we move on to our next topic, and then that's perfect. Yeah, when we don't talk about black socks Moldovan porn or whatever. So sometimes there's categories like for people who want that on purpose. Do you notice that? I know.
Like there's like a category, it'll say Czech. I'm like, who wants to
maybe people from Czech. I mean, maybe those
Czechoslovakian porn on purpose. Why?
There's probably not that many Czechoslovakian porns these days, given. Don't think. I think you got to update your countries there, Joe. I don't think that Czechoslovakia's been around for a while.
I will bet you real money if you go on your little Pornhub account right now, because I know you have an account. If you go on because I know you like to save your searches and everything.
Oh,
if you go on your little Pornhub,
no save searches. Reckless.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. So when you go on your little Pornhub, I guarantee you there's a category. Hold on now. I'm gonna look this up right now. Whoa! Incognito window. What are you doing, Joe? Hold on.
You're gonna get arrested. You're gonna get arrested in Texas. What are you doing, man?
That's no, I don't care about that. I just don't want that in my regular Google searches. You know what I mean? I don't want to sully my regular Google searches.
Oh, I'm sure your regular Google search is real tight. I'm sure.
It is. What do you think's in there? What do you think I do on the internet?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just wrestling. It's just wrestling and Reds.
Wrestling and sports. What else do you think I'm doing? You think I'm doing anything else on the internet? Czech is definitely a category on any major porn. You explain to me why. It doesn't even the country doesn't exist, right?
Well, the Czech Republic still exists.
Czech Republic exists. So, I don't know. I just think it's weird that that's a category. Who's like, oh, I need some Czech porn.
Yeah, I need the Czech Republic porn. Yeah.
Right. Is there something going on in Czech porn that I don't know about?
I would know. I don't. That stuff doesn't work for me. So.
Well, the thumbnail is always like a woman on the street in a very large coat. Because it just looks freezing.
It's always cold, and they're always
always a very large coat.
Yes, and a hat. She's got a stocking cap on, and some guy drives up, and then they talk, and then
and then they never have bodies as good as the American porn stars. I don't know. It's just I can't get into it.
We've kind of figured it out.
Yeah, we've got that down. That's the America Fuck Yes song. He shouts out porno at the end because why wouldn't he? I mean, we do a great job with the porno here. There's no doubt about it. So, better than most of these other hokey countries. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Rest in peace, Bill Mercer.
Rest in peace, age 99. Bill Mercer. All right, Joe, what wrestling? We got a lot of wrestling to do. Where do you want to go? We got CMLL, we got AAA, we got Slam Dunk Collision, we got roster movement, we got MLW. I think we can't go to MLW yet. We got to wait a little bit on MLW, I think. But
listen, Czechoslovakian porn is hour 1, MLW is hour 3.
I was gonna say, yeah, I would agree.
I can't do that in hour 1. That's an hour 3 topic.
I feel like we need a little bit of a gap before we get to AAA, because I think the Pornhub searches in AAA unfortunately have way too many things in common.
That's obscene, right?
Yeah, obscene, awful. I don't want to watch it. I feel bad after I watch it. I would hate for my grandfather to come see me spending my free time watching it. Same idea.
Is watching AAA just as embarrassing for a dead relative to catch you doing than watching Czechoslovakian porn?
I think they'd probably rather have me watch the porn, because at least I'm getting something out of it. I'm deriving some amount of pleasure out of it. There's no pleasure coming from Reyes 2025 or any AAA.
Well, set us up for the lucha.
Let's okay. You know what? Let's do fucking AAA. Let's start off with AAA, because I think we can get this one done pretty quickly. And then we'll build up to CMLL. I think we need a gap. Before we get to CMLL, because I actually have real things to talk about with that. So, all right. Reyes 2025. So we previewed it on last week's show with Cubs fan. Cubs came onto the show, luchablog.com, and helped us preview AAA's Reyes. That is one of the relatively big shows of the year. It wasn't very easy to watch anywhere. No one has bothered to even pirate it. Like, it's not available on anywhere. I know, remember how AAA would upload the pay-per-views, essentially, or their major shows, they would upload them on YouTube in highlight form, quote-unquote highlight form, but it would be like a 4-hour-long highlight video. It looks like they're changing it. So it looks like what they're doing now is they're splitting them up into matches and releasing those matches throughout the week. So tomorrow you can see the women's match. On Sunday, you can watch the men's match on the AAA YouTube channel. So they split up that way, which is fine. Who cares? Because I'm never going to watch this shit ever again. But if you want to watch this, you can do that. Now, we found our own means to at least watch part of the show, but I believe we only caught, what did we catch? I think we had the last 4 matches on our show. There's not even match times for the previous 4 matches. I don't even know if they're available. I don't even know if anybody can watch them anywhere. Who fucking cares? So anyway, we have the last 4 matches. I'll start with the main event. I think we'll go that way and then work our way down. So the main event was Alberto El Patron, who is the AAA Mega Champion, defending against El Hijo del Vikingo. So you have Alberto, Vikingo, and they had a match that was perfectly whatever. It was fine for like 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes maybe. Vikingo's not really doing much spectacular stuff anymore. He's kind of keeping it low key. Alberto's kind of doing, he's rolling around the ring. He's basic ass wrestling. It's fine. It's nothing's happening. And then it's just a parade of people running in, referees getting assaulted, things happening, and none of it makes any sense. The crowd, I guess, is into it, I suppose. But it's like, at one point you have JBL run in. At one point, the heel referee comes in. At one point, Vikingo's father, who's at ringside with him, is hitting people with guitars. Dorian Roldan is coming down and he's got a guitar, and then another guy's music hit, and then he has a thing, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, how do you even describe what this shit was at the end of this match? It was just it was a parade. It was like the WrestleMania main event last year. It's just a parade of people coming out, putting people through tables, hitting people with guitars, and then it's over and Alberto El Patron wins. He beats Vikingo. I don't even know. How the fuck do you even describe what we watched here?
All right, so full disclosure, I went and took a shit while you were talking. I don't know if you knew I was gone.
I did not.
I was bursting at the seams, man. I normally I can just, pinch it and hold it. I couldn't. So I had wings earlier today, and it would have been so I had to slip out of there. I only heard you talking about the Alberto Vikingo match.
That's all I talked about. No, that's I started there. I
heard everything you said.
Okay, all right. I just don't know how we can even begin to explain what the hell we had to watch.
All right, well, I want you to hear me out. I have a hot take. But please hear me out.
Okay.
I didn't think this AAA show was that bad by AAA standards.
Okay. All right.
Normally, when we review AAA, it's so bad and it's such an abomination that it's like some of the worst shit that you'll see over the course of the year. I don't think that this Raid the Reyes show was on that level. Now look, we only got the back half. Now, to be fair, the 4 matches we didn't get were just the qualifiers for the Raid the Reyes final. I doubt we're missing anything spectacular with those. They were probably very perfunctory, standard, 4-way matches, and we're probably better off that we didn't see them. But the rest of this, including the main event, and I don't know if this is another hot take, I thought the main event was pretty good until it completely fell off the rails with a million run-ins at the end.
Oh no, I thought the work was okay. I thought Alberto actually brought his A game a little bit. Not an A game, B- game. How do we go B- game for Alberto?
That's as well. Yeah, he never brings
he's never
the A game.
You're never getting A again.
Vikingo looks pretty good. I mean,
okay.
I didn't know how he was going to look, and I thought they were having a decent match, and then it just became a AAA match. Do you know what I mean? Like, then you had the ref getting pulled out at the count of 2. You had everybody running in. You had, and then, the Vikingo gets multiple visual pins, and then Alberto cheats him in the end with all the bullshit. And by the end of it, it was just the same old AAA clusterfuck that you always get. But up until that point, I was actually enjoying that match. And the rest of it, again, do I think any of these would I call any of these matches good? No, I would not. Did I think that this was the least bad AAA show that we have reviewed in? I can't remember the last time that I saw one that I thought would be better than what I saw here. I just really didn't think it was that terrible. I don't know if I'm just numb to it now or if it just wasn't as awful as it usually is. I mean, what's the consensus on this? Was it as awful as it usually is? Because I really felt like it wasn't.
I think a lot of people think it was pretty terrible.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I don't know, like the Raid the Reyes final. Like, I don't like Nino Hamburguesa. I don't like that guy. And I'm more than happy with him confined to the prelims. But look, that motherfucker's over.
I actually like that match. My take was going to be that match is actually pretty good.
So that's the one you liked.
I like that match. Yeah, I did not like the main event all that much. I thought it was okay for 5 minutes, but the problem is like the last 25 minutes or whatever was just a parade of bullshit.
Completely off the rails.
The women's match was pretty crummy and a horrible finish, and the 3-way tag was just a disaster. But I did think that the semi-main, the 4-way, was pretty good. And yeah, while I'm not the biggest El Macias fan, and Nino Hamburguesa I could do without forever, over as fuck. And they did a good job of building the win up of Hamburguesa going off the top rope, hitting that big splash onto Macias and getting the win. Like that it all kind of worked in that match. And so I did not hate that match. I thought when I saw Hamburguesa hit the ring and I was like, oh my God, here we fucking go. That was okay. That was fine. The rest of the show I thought was pretty fucking terrible though.
Yeah. I mean, I understand, I know I'm probably on an island. I just didn't, I normally hate my life when I'm watching these AAA shows, and I'm trying to find ways to do bits when we review it just to make it fun and interesting. But to me, this was just like, the tag title 3-way thing. I don't know. It just, again, I wouldn't call it good, but it wasn't like offensively bad like the AAA shit usually is. The women's match wasn't any good, but again, and then they did the angle at the end with what's her name coming back. I know I'm putting you on the spot because you probably don't know.
I was about Lady Shani.
Lady Shani came back, yeah. So it looks like they're building towards Flammer versus Lady Shani, but it's AAA, so who knows if they'll ever even do it?
Who knows? Yeah.
So like,
the women's match,
in theory, they're building.
Yeah, everything in AAA has to be in theory, as comes laid out in our preview last week. Is like every story feels like it has a beginning. It doesn't always feel like it has a middle, and you're never sure what the end's going to be. But like, it begins. All the stories start. The stories start. But now what happens after that story starts is impossible to figure out, because even in this match, even in the Flammer versus Dali's match or whatever, you have Lady Shani, who makes her return, and it's a horrible distraction finish. Like, Dalys has a submission on Flammer and decides, fuck that, I got to go look at the entranceway. I must look and see that a person is coming down. So she
have to let go. I
have to let go of this submission that might win me this match to look at this person. So while she's distracted, then Flammer comes up from behind and rolls her up and gets the win. And you're thinking, oh man, Lady Shani and Flammer have to be together. And then Shani gets in the ring and just beats up Flammer. And you're like, okay, well, whatever.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. A swerve, because why wouldn't there be a swerve?
Right. Okay.
You got to do another swerve, Rich.
Sure.
Yeah, and the match wasn't any good.
It was not very good. No.
It was not any good. I mean, you had the Jeff Jarrett antics in the three-way deal, and I guess Forestero and Sansone, that was for the tag team titles.
It's a vacant tag team titles, which the incredible story of that, we talked about it last week, but if you missed the show last week, the prior champions, the AAA World Tag Team champions, were Raj Desi and Satnam Singh, who won the titles in like August or whatever, and then never defended them.
Nope.
Never showed up on AAA television. Were never even named. They never even talked about them ever. They just stripped them of the title without ever mentioning them and put them on the line here. And I was like, oh, it'd be so funny if Jeff Jarrett and Sam Adonis won this. But instead, they Sansone and Faristo got it.
And when those guys won the titles, everyone was like, oh, we're never going to see them again.
Right. We all knew this was the end.
But you have Conan on his podcast. No, bro, they don't know what they're talking about, bro. I'm going to bring them in. No, we knew we were never going to see him again.
And to Cub's point, like, what is Raj Desi doing that he can't come back?
Right. Like, he's so busy. He's so busy that you can't get dates on Raj Desi. Even Satnam Singh.
Yeah, available. Very available. Satnam Singh, very available.
He's not. He hasn't been on AEW TV in months. Since he wrestled like Bryan Danielson, right? Like,
I think so. Yeah, I know he was doing those early pre-Dynamite matches with Colt Cabana for like a year. I don't even know if they're doing that anymore.
With Cabana every week. He's never on TV. Tony would graciously believe me. He'd let him go.
Yes.
Okay, just to get the guy in the ring. We knew we'd never see him.
Yeah, and Maple Leaf Wrestling does not run nearly enough for Raj Desi to be too busy, so he could have easily showed up for.
Bro, people talk without knowing what they're talking about.
Carlos.
Like they all think they know everything. And then no, we were all right.
Right.
They never came back.
Right. Like, they never did.
We all knew they weren't going to come back.
Yeah.
So now, the vacant title, it doesn't matter. Like, listen, that's the thing though about these shows. These people who come love this shit. They
I know. Who are these people? Who are these people? It's like you always say about NXT. Like, you don't trust any adult that likes NXT. Right. I don't know that I trust any adult that likes AAA.
It's hard. Well, you know what? Maybe from the standpoint of they're not hardcore wrestling fans.
It's just a good night out.
Described to us before.
It's just a good night out. You go on, you get your cerveza, and you just laugh.
Have some
along,
beers. Yeah. Go out with the boys. Maybe bring the family. Whatever your situation is, and maybe you don't even know half the people who are on the show, but it's just the night out, and people going through tables and doors, and that's why it's like it doesn't matter if the angles make sense. It doesn't matter if the matches tell any kind of discernible story. None of that matters because people just want to see people beat each other up and do cool things, right? That's the crowd they draw. And, maybe they're not drawing the hardcore CMLL crowd that goes to the non-Arena Mexico shows because they're just drawing, regular ass people who want to have a good time. And these people have a good time because, it's just a constant state of people screaming throughout this whole show. They just loved everything. They were eating everything up. Were you surprised that JBL was back?
No, not at all. Not surprised. Yeah. So the main event, as you mentioned, they had an okay match at the beginning, and then I tried to write down all the run-ins, but it's impossible to even. I think Sanson was the first guy who came out, and then I want to say it was Hamburguesa came out, and I think Laredo Kid came out to fight him off. And then Roldan, who's the figurehead president, or I guess the real president of Triple. What's his position? I forget if he's the real president or the figurehead position. Yeah,
Talking about the main event run-ins. Yeah. Hamburg Glacier got involved. I guess they're going to push him now. Again, in theory, because it's AAA, he might be right back to the prelim.
Right.
He might be back in the prelims, like being horny for Big Mommy again next. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Remember when Cody Rhodes was like, "We're going to bring her into AEW"? I love Big Mom. That's her name, right? Big Mommy.
Big Mommy. Yeah.
That never happened.
No.
Thankfully.
That would have been bad. I think that was during the peak of the COVID times, and we were like, okay, I don't know about that one, but might
have been pre-COVID, and maybe that's why it died on the vine.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's true. Maybe it was. But anyway, Roldan comes down and he brings the heel referee with him, and then he hits a guitar, or he's about to hit Vikingo with the guitar, and then Latin Lover, who's the figure or the on-screen authority figure, runs out.
Of course.
Yeah, he's got a kendo stick, and then JBL, of course, comes out to beat up Latin Lover.
In his duster.
Right. And then
duster.
And then
what do you think they're paying him to come in?
God only knows. And then Alberto just hits Vikingo with the guitar, and then the referee counts 3 because he's the heel referee, counts 3 and
the heel
0.2 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and then he's out. And then
the other ref got yanked out when Vikingo was going to
right.
I guess they beat the shit out of him.
And then all the heels beat the shit out of Vikingo and his dad, and then we signed off. So I don't know.
See you next week. Where they may or may not address any of that on the TV anyway. So, it definitely degenerated.
So where was the good part? What was the good part? Oh, I guess the Hamburg Glacier match was good, but I see what you mean though. It wasn't. Sometimes these are just very soul crushing shows.
Yeah,
it may have been helped that we only watched 4 matches and we only got an hour of an hour and a half or so of the. That's possible. Looking at the undercard, I don't know that anything on the undercard felt like they'd be truly terrible.
No, you know that those were like little 6-minute matches.
Yeah. So this was. And what I have, and Cubs kind of talked about this as well. Conan might not be doing the day-to-day booking as much of AAA as he once was. He believes Alberto has a little bit more of a hand in it, and that's why it's been very sports entertaining lately. Is that Alberto's got a little bit more.
Well, maybe it'll make a little more sense.
Well, I would go that far.
Let's not push it.
Let's
not push it.
Yeah, calm down.
It might not be any worse.
I guess that would be the idea, is that it can't be worse than the late stage Conan booking. It might not make sense, but it could potentially be.
I think too, the 4 matches we saw, we didn't see any truly putrid work. There's always a couple matches on like a triple minia where the work is just putrid.
Oh, and there's some guys in there and he's just old or bad or whatever. Yeah, I guess that's right. We didn't get any of that.
We didn't get any putrid work. Now, remember, if you go back, I didn't say this was good. I didn't go that far.
It wasn't as bad as other AAA shows, I guess was your point.
Right. It was like the least offensively bad AAA show that we reviewed in my memory. Because can you remember the last one we liked?
Oh, man. One of the fake triple manias.
Not match.
No, show. Yeah, I don't remember.
Show.
There had to be a triple mania years ago that we liked, but I don't.
Because there's been like Vikingo title matches that were good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Plenty of those. And
the last straight up AAA show that we liked. Oh,
no. I don't. Maybe a listener would know, but I can't remember. But anyway, that was Raid. Fuck Raid. Let's move on to the CMLL.
Yeah, let's talk CMLL because we also previewed that show. Yeah, let's get to something that's a little bit better. So it's Friday, Arena Mexico, big time show for CMLL. The main event, or I guess the main event, we'll combine the 2 matches because I think it's important to talk about them together. So you have your quote unquote main event is Star Jr. and Zandokan Jr. Versus Esfinge and Valiente. And the idea here is that the winning team is going to move on to the main event and face off in a mask versus mask match. Now, Cubs and I talked about this a little bit, and we always have to reiterate this because there are people that listen and they don't understand. They don't get it because if you're used to American wrestling, the idea that the winning team would have to go and face off in a mask versus mask match might seem weird. But the reason is that these guys are feuding. These teams are not teams of guys that like each other. The idea here is they're going to take 2 rivals. These 2 rivals are going to team up. These 2 rivals need to then want to win the match so that the rival can take the rival's mask, right?
They want very badly to have an opportunity to take their partner's mask because they hate him so much that they're even willing to put up their own mask.
Right. So Star Jr. and Zendokan Jr. hate each other, but they're willing to work together at least for a couple of minutes for the right to then take one of the other guy's mask in the main event.
By taking the other guy's mask. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of it's like a machismo thing.
Right. Because like American wrestling would be the opposite. Like the winning team would go, phew, we don't have to give up our masks. Okay, great. Like that's
high five. Let's get out of here.
Right. But that is not at all in Lucha.
That's not the psychology.
Yeah. In CMLL, it's like, no, I want to go to the main event because it's Arena Mexico main event, and I want to take your mask because I fucking hate you. So the idea here is let's work together to win this match, and then we're going to go to the main event. So you have Star Jr. and Zendokan Jr. They win against this Finge and Valiente. I thought the match was pretty good, pretty decent. Star Jr. gets the win over, I believe he beat Esfinge to move on. I forget now if he beat Valiente or Esfinge, but regardless, it does not matter. To get to the main event. And the main event then obviously Zendokan Jr. versus Star Jr., which I thought was really good. I like that match a lot with Star Jr., who I don't think is great. I don't know if we'll talk about him a little bit more because he, of course, lost his mask here. I don't know if he's that good, but Zendokan Jr. I love. And I thought these guys had a really, really fun main event. And it got brutal at a point. Now, it wasn't your classic, like, mask-ripping, bloody lucha brawl or whatever. But there were certain points in this match where these two guys were really pissed off at each other and just started headbutting one another for, like, a minute straight. And it was just, you could tell it was just eating these guys alive. They want to take the other guy's mask. They want nothing more than to take the rival's mask or whatever. Zendokan, I think, is awesome. And he was really the star of the show, even though, Star Jr. loses and does the whole pomp and circumstance after the match. Like Zendokan, he came across to me like, oh, that dude's a star. That guy might be a guy worthy of future main events at CMLL or whatever. But they had, I thought, a really, really fun match at the end. And Zendokan just pinned Star Jr. and took the mask. And we'll talk about the post-match here in a minute, but what'd you think of both matches?
Well, Zendokan Jr. is a guy who really broke through in 2023 when he started getting booked for Arena Mexico, and that's when I was really covering CMLL hard, both behind the paywall, and then we were covering it pretty frequently on the show in 2023, because that's the year CMLL really started to heat up. It was on the back end of 2022, and then by 2023 they were rolling.
A lot of the Rocky stuff too, and Cubs and I talked about that a little bit. That the Rocky Romero story really helped. Like American fans, there was that bridged gap of, okay, maybe you don't watch CMLL all that much, but here's a very easy story to explain with a guy that you know, Rocky Romero, who is now in CMLL. He's the biggest heel in the promotion. Everybody hates him. Like, that's an easy bridge to get on over there to watch CMLL. So that really helped. I think that 2023 of people being able to watch Rocky as a top heel.
Yeah, and that 2023 period where where Rocky Romero was legitimately one of the biggest money drawing heels in the business. And, his program at Volador Jr., and we'll talk about that in a minute because now they're teaming up, which is bizarre. Zendokan Jr. got his opportunity in Arena Mexico after a couple years of working other non-Arena Mexico shows, and he jumped off the page immediately. And I wrote about it at the time, and I wasn't alone. I'm not trying to claim I'm some kind of, that I saw something nobody else did. Everybody saw it immediately. They're like, whoa, this guy has something, as soon as he was working prelims in Arena Mexico. So it was great to kind of see his rise since then to where now he's working a main event mask match and taking someone's mask in the main event of Arena Mexico. And you're right. I think he is going to be a player moving forward. And that 2023 period saw the rise of Sobinaro and Templario and all these guys. And he came after those guys had a head start on him and were big stars already by then and were solidified as big stars during that period. But he was someone who was on the come up. And now we have guys coming up after that, like your Neons and people like that who are coming up after, so they're doing a great job continually restocking the ponds and trying new guys in the prelims and not everybody gets over, as it's pro wrestling. But in this case, this is a guy whose rise has been really great to see. And now he like you said, he's gone from being a guy to a guy. He's a guy now. And he took Star Jr.'s mask. I agree. I don't think Star Jr. is any kind of great worker or anything. AEW brought him in a few times. He's okay. I
he's
think
fine.
MLW brought him in a little bit. He's okay, but he loses the mask. Okay. First of all, he's ugly. He's ugly as hell.
Yeah, that was so I correctly predicted last week that he was going to lose his mask here, mostly because I just saw him and I was like, yeah, that looks like a guy who could probably be fine without a mask. And then he took his mask off and I was like, ooh, maybe not.
You never know what's under there.
Yeah, you never know what's under there. Because he looked like a decent looking guy and I thought, yeah, you know what?
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. And then he took the mask off and I was like, ooh, that guy's not a good baby. But
it's going to work because he punched Zandakan in the face and he turned heel.
Yes, exactly. So because last week when Cubs and I were talking about this, I said, hey, Star Jr. might lose his mask. And Cubs said, that's actually not a bad idea. I just said because I was like, his mask kind of stinks and he looks like he's probably attractive or whatever. I forget my reasoning. And then Cubs saved me by saying, well, you know what? They don't have any baby faces really in this company that much that are unmasked. So maybe that's a good idea to have him be a baby face that's unmasked or whatever. Right. Then he takes his mask off and I'm like, ooh, that ain't no baby face. That guy is ugly as fuck. Like that ain't going to work. Yeah. And then it didn't because then he beats the fuck out of Zandokan afterwards. So it's kind of ended up being kind of a double turn in a way.
Do the turn. And I think, if you've been following this now on social media and whatnot, like, he's really leaning into the heel thing, and I think he has a great face for it. I think he's nailing the express. He's coming across much better as an unmasked heel than he was as a generic masked babyface.
Yes. Yeah, it's actually I'm more into him now because I thought that post-match attack was great. Yeah, for people that didn't see it, Star Jr. gives up his mask, they do all the pomp and circumstance. This is, I forget his full name, Isaiah something or another. He's 33 years old or 31 years old. He's been wrestling for that amount of years.
Isaiah Hernandez Lopez.
There you go. Yes, the classic. I love that. That's one of my favorite things about lucha is announcing the man's name. It works a little bit better when it's like the old guy. It's like, oh, we've seen this masked guy for 35 years now, and now here he is. He's 58 years old, and here's his family, and they hug and all that. So that's always really cool. So they do all that.
Somebody there. He had either a girlfriend or a wife there.
Yeah. They were locking lips after the match.
He
or
went
whatever.
And gave her a kiss before he unmasked.
Yeah. So he's in there and he does the mask and he's kind of crying or whatever. And Zandokan, who's kind of a chicken shit or kind of an asshole or whatever, kind of walks up to him and is like, "Hey man, put her here. Sorry, I took your mask, whatever." Yeah. And Star Jr. starts cutting a promo, and then all of a sudden he turns around and takes the mic to Zandokan's head and goes, face. "Fuck you, motherfucker! You took my mask. You ruined my life." So that's good. Yeah, that's good shit.
Yeah. It worked. So I think this was effective from that standpoint. It takes off the mask, and you're like, "Oh, Marla Hooch, what a hitter!"
I was like, "Cubs, this man ain't no babyface. This guy, that's not a babyface. Yeah, that's not gonna work."
But it is good.
Big honker, big honker out of this guy. That's I didn't really realize that.
Yeah. He's got a heel face. So, and that feud will continue, obviously. So, and, Esfinge and Valiente, I guess they're just meant to go at this forever.
These guys have been trying to put their masks on the line for years now, and it just never happened. So I guess Valiente.
I don't know about years, but a long time.
Yeah.
But a long time.
They were certainly in the most recent of these matches, they were in it. Yeah. And they survived.
Yeah. So, and a lot of people thought that would be the final match. But, I thought it all came across well. The show as a whole, I thought, was a good show, not a great show. But it was a good – after the first two matches, I thought the first two matches both stunk. And then everything from the Lightning match on was varying degrees of good. But I didn't think anything got to great. The mask match came close, but I can't call it great. It was fun, though, and it was good.
No, great's too much. Great's too much. It was fun and good, but it wasn't great.
Dorada and Mystico versus the AEW guys, Hologram and Commander, was very good, but I stopped short of great. But it was very good. It was a fireworks match. They went out there, and that's what I wanted out of that. What I found notable was Hologram and Commander were very much over in that building. And to my knowledge, neither one has ever worked the building. And you got the sense that the fans there recognized how big this was that they were working the building. Okay. I don't know how many of the fans are aware who Hologram is. I don't know if it's well known in Mexico that he's Aramis. I don't know if that's, I don't know. But I think they knew who Hologram was at minimum because he was over. They knew who Commander was because he was over. And it felt like, at least the non-tourist fans, you had the sense that they felt how big this was that they were there. In fact, Mystico was getting booed a little bit in this match. Did you notice that?
I did. Yeah, he did something, especially when they won. When they won, they got booed. But there was a couple of mystical things that he would do something, he would motion the crowd, and they would go, boo, boo. And I was like, oh, wow. I'm surprised Hologram and Commander are coming into CMLL.
They were over, and they performed well, too, in that helped.
Oh, they nailed everything, man. Those guys looked... Mystico was a little sloppy, and I think he got hurt at some point during the match. I know that CMLL said he's going to be out for a little bit, and I think he was in a walking boot or something.
The deal is he was hurt coming in. Okay. Well, okay. He's claiming he's been hurt for a couple of weeks, and that the doctors have told him if he keeps working on the injury, it's only going to get worse. So he's going to stop working for 2 or 3 weeks. He's going to miss the MLW. He's going to miss Battle Riot. He's going to miss the MLW show. He's going to miss a bunch of other dates, and they're going to clean up whatever's wrong with him. So he's claiming he's been hurt. So your instincts are good because he clearly wasn't right. Whether he got hurt in this match or he's been hurt for a while, he wasn't totally himself in this match.
Yeah, he was okay. He was okay, but he was a step slower than everybody else in the match, throughout. Yeah. Dorada was all over the place, bouncing all, like crazy. And then, Hologram Commander, I mean, they nailed it. The Hologram, and he's a guy that I never, when he was Aramis, I thought he was okay, but I never thought like that much of him. But man, what a success this whole Hologram thing has been with him, because here's a guy who, and Cubs kind of talked about this last week too, here's a guy who kind of hit his ceiling in AAA as like a mid-card guy, and told them he was leaving, and they kind of laughed at him like, well, what the fuck are you going to do? You're going to go to America? That's not going to work. It never works. And he was kind of like, I got to try. I'm not going anywhere here. And he comes back with his brand new character, and he gets over in AEW, and he comes back here to CMLL in Arena, Mexico, and he's as over as anybody in this entire fucking building, in this entire night. And that's got to be a tremendous success. And he nailed it. I mean, he was great in this match, and Commander too, who can sometimes, be a little sloppy. He hit all of his big moves that he had to hit too. The springboards. He's
been better.
He has been better. Yeah.
I gotta hit, I was not the biggest Commander fan for a long time, but I really feel like he has been better. I love Hologram, and I enjoy watching him every time he's on AEW TV. He lost to the double pin with Dorada to eliminate both of them, and then it was Mystico beating Commander to win the match.
Right,
is how they handled it. So that is the first time Hologram has lost in any way, shape, or form. His team lost the match, but he also was pinned.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I never thought of that. Yeah, he's still been protected.
When you look at it that way, because he's undefeated in AEW. Obviously, Aramis is not undefeated, but the gimmick Hologram has never lost in AEW. Not only was he on the losing side, but because of the Lucha, the CMLL rules, right? They double pinned each other, and then they had to get out of there, and it came down to Mystico and Commander. So it's the first time he's lost. So I'm sure Tony Khan had to sign off on that, but he'll still be pushed as undefeated in AEW. So it's really not that big a deal from AEW standpoint. And he didn't take the fall that lost the match either. He was involved in the funky double pin, and then it's Commander who quote unquote lost the match.
Right.
So to me, that was probably the best match on the show. Either that or the mask.
Yeah,
match.
I'd say to most people this probably is. I'm with you that I don't know if I would go great on it. I'm probably like low end really Notebook, maybe 4, 4.25, 4, somewhere on that range. I've seen some people go 4.5 or whatever, and that's fine. Yeah, it did land for me on that level, but I thought it was a very, very good match.
Yeah, anywhere from 3 3/4 to, I guess, 4.5 high end. I wouldn't think was crazy.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'd be somewhere on the lower end of that range, but I thought it was a very fun match. CMLL tag team titles. We talked about Rocky Romero and Volador. It's so weird having them team together. Volador's a Rudo now. It's like, because they had that feud where they just title matches and main events and just, and everything in 2023. And now they're teaming together, and, they're facing the long time. You want to guess how long that Angel De Oro and Diablo Roja have held these CMLL tag team titles?
Well, unfortunately, I talked about it a little bit last week, but it's something like not a ton though. I think it's something like they've had these titles for like 500 days or something like that, right? It's been a while.
No, 1,100 days.
Oh my God!
They've had these titles since January 2022.
Oh Jesus! I thought it was 2023 at some point. Oh crap! Wow. All right.
Now, okay.
Oh no, no. Okay, yeah. Never mind. Carry on. 2020. I got my years mixed up.
Yeah, January 2022. Now, to be fair, you don't always see these titles. They're the Mexican national tag team titles that are often booked in CMLL with Magnus and Rojito are the Mexican national tag team champions. So that can get a little confusing for people. But they did the deal here where it was like a non-finish, right? And then all the officials come out.
Right, I did a double count. I think Rocky and Angel, I want to say, did Canadian destroyers to each other type of thing, and then both guys just laid on the ground, and then everybody got counted out basically, and they got back in the ring, and the fans weren't very happy, and they decided, you know what, fuck it, let's do it, let's go back.
Well, the heels didn't want no part of that.
Yeah, of course.
They're like, and then they got called back to the ring, and then they just did a very short match where the champions retained. After Rocky and Volador had thrown their hands and were getting out of there, and they came back, it was all right. It was fine. Again, everything on the show after the two openers was a fine watch. The lightning match with Teton and Templario, same thing. He put him in the hold, and Templario had about 15, 20 seconds to burn left on the clock, and he just couldn't hold out, and he tapped. And Teton won like at the gun. So, it was a Teton Templario lightning match.
I was hoping it was a little more lightning. It wasn't enough lightning for me. I thought I expected, my God, these guys are going to have 10 minutes. They're going to go fucking nuts. And they didn't go fucking nuts. They went a little nuts. They went a little nuts, but there was a lot of stalling too. And I thought it was going to be like just boom, 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 boom. And it really wasn't, but a good finish. Like you said, a good finish where Templario's trying to hang on and just can't do it anymore and just taps out and it's over. So.
Yeah, they do that finish a lot in these lightning matches, but it's fine. It's the third match in the show. They weren't going to go balls to the wall. They understand their spot on the card and all of that. If they're in a main event, they're going to work a lot harder than this. But he has a good, entertaining match for that point in the show. And then I thought the first two matches both were putrid. I mean, just really bad.
Yeah. So, I was, I didn't know anything about the guys in the first match. So I asked Cubs, like, hey, who are these guys? Are they going to be like super crazy high flyers? And he was like, no, not at all. No. He's like the Bestia del Diablo guys are just like big dudes. They're just big giant guys. Now they looked cool as fuck. They came out and they all had skulls and devil masks and shit. And I'm like, oh, here we go. But then they were just like fat dudes that weren't very good at all.
Yeah, the Diablos, I've seen enough of them. Like they pop up every now and then, and they have for years, and they stink. They're not
good. Yeah, they're not.
The best you can say is they're, I guess, a decent base of guy. If like in a match like this, where the baby faces are going to be flying around, they're fine. But like they move slow as shit. You know what they come across to me like when you watch indie lucha and. Maybe there'll be a hyped indie lucha match and you're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll watch the whole show. Right. And you watch like the opener and there's these shitty local guys who are going nowhere.
Yeah.
Right?
They're always fat.
That's like what these
they're
guys,
always pretty fat. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what these guys are to me. They're like barely better or no better than the kind of guys you see on these local shows where it's just the local Rudos and they're not any good and they're out of shape and they're probably, 48 years old under that mask. And the problem is these guys are like young and they stink. Like the Gamelo Diablo guys, the one was Dark Panther, not that long ago, a few years ago. And the other guy, I forget what the other guy was, but it's not like they're old guys either. These are like young guys in their 20s and they're bad. They're not good. So this was basically Explosivo and Fugaz and Star Black. Anything that was good in this match was a result of these guys doing dives and flying around and throwing themselves into the fat bodies of these guys who stink. So I thought the match was putrid. I didn't think it was any good. I thought the women's match was terrible.
Oh, the worst match in the entire show by far. Just awful.
Yeah, these CMLL women's matches always fucking stink. And that's why I usually skip them. And I watched this one because it was for the vacant tag team titles, because these are the tag team titles that Vakir.
Yeah.
That Vakir vacated. They've been taking their sweet time. Oh no, it was Tessa Blanchard, right?
Yeah. Maybe you're right in both ways. These titles.
Break it down for me.
Okay, these titles. Let me get the exact lineage for you here real quick. So give me 1 sec to fire this up. All right.
I know Vakir had him at some point.
She did. They were the original champ. It was Vakir and Zuxis or whatever were the original champs. Yeah. Then Vakir left, and the titles were vacated. So they gave it to Luvia and Tessa Blanchard.
Right.
And then Tessa left. And they were like, all right, let's see if we get these titles on somebody who will stay around for a little bit. So these titles have basically, I think they've only been defended a handful of times in the last 2 years or whatever. Because, the people that get them don't defend them all the time. And then when they do get them, they just vacate them because they leave and get hired by other companies or whatever. So the idea here is they did this global tournament and they brought people from all across the world to team or whatever. And the end result was, Lady Frost and Taya Valkyrie were AEW representatives against, Luvia and what's it, La Charuricha? La Charuricha. Yeah, she stinks.
La Harochita.
She was
Luvia,
terrible.
Right?
Yeah.
Luvia.
They were terrible. Lady Frost is bad. Taya Valkyrie is terrible. It's just awful. Yeah.
Taya Valkyrie's the shits.
She's so bad. The little steps. She does those little steps. I hate wrestlers that do the little steps.
She's so bad.
Or they run the ropes.
Never been good.
Just run. Just accelerate. Yeah. Lift your legs, run. With the baby steps.
Why will you not run? Just please run. What is with the tippy toes? I don't understand.
And then she does the thing where she turns way too early too.
Yeah.
Great rope runners will turn at the absolute last second. Kenny Omega's a fantastic rope runner. That guy attacks the ropes, and it's the last second that he bounces off the ropes. She goes, turns around, and then leans back. And then goes with the little teethy steps. Come on, run the ropes.
Someone needs to take her and sit her down. You ever see Terry Gordy run the ropes?
Yes, there's a rope runner.
You ever see Terry Gordy attack the ropes? That's such a great way to put it. Terry Gordy would get in the ring and just warm it up while the other team is, the other guys getting introduced. He would hit those fucking ropes and he felt like he was trying to break them. It felt like he was trying to break them. Attack the ropes, please. Begging you. These little dainty steps. And then it's not just her. So many people are like this. And then they hit the ropes and they barely fucking bend them.
Yeah.
It takes me right out of it. And that's, believe me, that's not the only thing she's bad at. She is the shit.
she's bad at everything.
Been the shit. And Lady Frost, good for her working Arena Mexico. She comes from a wrestling family. Her grandfather was Batman Tony Marino or whatever.
Oh, is that? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I don't know anything about her, to be honest.
I think that's her grandfather was the Batman Tony Marino from the Pittsburgh area, right? That was her grandfather. So she's got wrestling. So she probably meant a lot to her to work Arena Mexico because she knows ball. She's from a wrestling family. And I thought she had to work down to these people. I don't think Lady Frost is great, but I've seen Lady Frost be good.
She was better. She was the far and away the best person in this match.
No, without a doubt. And I felt like she was working down to the people she was in the ring with. So, and I'm happy that she got to work Arena Mexico. It probably meant a lot to her. You could kind of see it in her face too. She was really, it looked like she was thrilled to be there and it meant something. So Taya Valkyrie, she worked Mexico for years and years. I don't know if she ever worked Arena Mexico. Probably not, right?
Well, she was doing more. She did more AAA.
She's AAA.
Yeah, she was doing AAA.
I don't think she ever worked Arena Mexico either. But obviously, she worked in Mexico for many, many years before she got hooked up with, I guess, Impact was her break in the U.S., right? So, yeah, but for Lady Frost, let me look this up so I don't look like a goof. I don't think she had done any shots down there yet, right?
I would guess no. But
no,
yeah,
well,
feel
no,
free to
she's
look it
done
up.
7. Let's see. No, she did. She worked with Taya Valkyrie earlier in the no. Yeah. One other arena. No, but same tour.
Okay.
The week before she worked. So they faced La Catalina and Persephone in Arena Mexico. So this was her first tour in CMLL. She's been there for all month.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good career accomplishment for her. That definitely means something to her, like you said. But
yeah, so her second Arena Mexico match, and she's in a title match and all of that, because they did the whole tournament. They beat Kira and Skadi. Then they beat Hera and Olympia. I don't think I'm familiar with Hera and Olympia. And then it's the other way around. Hera and Olympia were the first round. Then it was Kira and Skadi. I've seen Kira. don't know if I've seen this Skady or what. Probably, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell.
I skip a lot because it's always brutal. And then and then this was the final. So
yeah, and this is Taya. I looked up Taya. This is her first Arena Mexico tour as well.
Yeah. AAA all those years. But yeah, so that was and Lady Frost, I mean, you know, she's 40. I mean, she's older than people think, and she's been around. So it's you know, she started wrestling late, first of all, and she's having sort of a by wrestling standards, a late breakthrough, you know, with hooking up and doing random AEW shots the last couple years. And I guess she did she do Impact prior to that?
Lady Frost, yeah.
She did. Yeah,
she did a little Impact run.
Yeah, and so isn't she married to a worker? Does that guy get
She
booked?
is. Yeah, I forget who it is though. Yeah, it's a worker. I forget which guy. I also don't know if they're still together, but at one point she was married to a wrestler. So
they did an act together. He wore like a top hat or something.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, it looks like he.
It says was married to professional wrestler Victor Benjamin.
Well, all right. Well, all right. I apologize to Lady Frost.
Yes, she was married to fellow professional wrestler Victor Benjamin, but
well,
and you're right about Tony Marino, granddaughter Tony Marino. Yeah.
The Batman. Trademarks were loose and free in those days.
Well, he's the Bat.
Bat.
Right? That's
yes,
different.
The Batman.
Right.
Yes. The 3 words. The Batman.
Yeah.
Like with the fucking like the costume. Like
well, okay.
Costume.
so no plausible deniability. It was very obvious what he was going for, is what you're saying.
It's like when you read old news clippings and it's baseball, 2 words.
Right.
Baseball. They use the Batman, Tony Marino. So,
but you're saying he was wearing black and had the whole get up. So
no, like with the logo on the chest, like he wore the Batman.
Yeah,
outfit.
All right. Well, yeah. Again, it was harder to figure out. You know, how was DC Comics ever going to find out? I mean, come on.
How are they going to know who's under the mask? Who are they going to sue?
You're right.
Right.
Very mysterious.
Who are they going to sue?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, another packed house in Arena Mexico. So
yeah, we got to watch CML more. We got to stay up on it more. We got to keep.
I watch it. We just never talk about it.
Yeah, we got to make sure it's a consistent talking point on the show. Because
I mean, we were doing like a monthly deal in 2023. Like once a month, we'd catch everybody.
I think that's fair. I can't watch every week. Like there's too much going on, so it's harder to pack it in every single week. But I think we could probably do.
I'm going to tell you the other problem with it. Okay, and I ran into this problem when I was trying to write about it, and somewhat when we were doing it in 2023. I find it difficult to review from the standpoint of a show like this is easy. You got storylines coming together, big feuds, title matches, tournament finals, right? A show like this we can review. This is what we do, right? But your rank and file Friday Arena Mexico shows sometimes I find very difficult to review because very often they're not very storyline heavy. You get a lot of those Revelos Incredibles matches or whatever they're called that I fucking hate, where it's just guys teaming with, baby faces teaming with heels against baby. Like those matches are for the tourists mostly. Like sometimes they'll do angles off of them and things like that, but mostly it's just, all right, here's a bunch of stars in a match, and there's no, you know what I mean? Those shows are very difficult for me to look for an angle to review because we're just going to come on here. And yeah,
that match was good. That match was good too. Yeah, right. That match was pretty good. All right, yeah, cool.
And then if there's nothing to break down from a booking standpoint, we're going to have to break down. It's just the work that we're going to be breaking down, and I'm going to get bored out of my mind. I don't mind breaking down work. I like getting into the nuts and bolts of work, but to review a 5-match Arena Mexico show where there's very little in the way of booking or angles or news to discuss off of the show, where I'm just talking about work and execution, I don't know if that's something I'm super interested in doing. And if I'm not super interested in doing it, it's not going to be super interesting to the listener. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like, it's going to come through is the point. I feel like for us to do great audio, we have to be fully engaged in what we're talking about. And I don't know. I just find CMLL at times to be a very difficult company to review, the way that we review shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it would work. Like I've seen people say, hey, why don't you guys review the weekly, at least do the Friday shows, you know? And it's like, I don't know if they're fit for that kind of review. They might be more fit at times for like a brief write-up or something like that versus an audio review where we're going to dedicate 45 minutes to it.
Right. Or packed into a plus or whatever. We go, okay, yeah, the CMLL show recently was and run it down, and it could be a 10-minute segment. It's 10-minute segment, and then you're done.
You know, now look, there's also weeks where there's big matches. That's a different animal. And I agree that we could probably work that in a little more often when there's a big hyped match or something. We can definitely, you can find the time to parachute in and watch.
Oh God, yeah.
During weeks like that. And I don't watch every single week. I usually look at the lineup and determine whether I'm going to carve out time in my week for it. Sometimes I just watch the main event if the main event looks good. If it's, the same Sky team versus 3 fucking Rudos main event sometimes I blow it off. I'm not, you know what I mean? I've got other shit to watch and do. So I agree we could do more. It just isn't a promotion, I think, that is conducive to a weekly review. I don't think so anyway. But you're right, though. We look, they're still doing great business, and I think they probably deserve more attention than we give them. That's fair.
Yeah, that's all. Just something to keep in our mind. Just make sure that we keep it, in the back of our head. Hey, if there's a big CML thing, let's try to cover it and watch it. And discuss it moving forward. But yeah, that is Lucha. That's our brief foray into Lucha here. We told you guys it was going to be a Lucha heavy show, but there you go. 2 hour. Well, not 2 hour.
We're 2.5 hours into the show.
Pretty Lucha. Well, we did a lot of Bill Mercer and a lot of existential crisis, Joe Lanza discussing death segments. But we got a lot of else to get to. Make sure we get this show get all the topics we want to for the show. So let's talk about these slam dunk collision ratings. So we did a write-up I did a brief write-up at flagshippatreon.com, kind of explaining, the experiment that AEW has been doing lately with these things. You can go back to the college football playoffs back in December. That was kind of the first foray into let's do these collisions after a major sporting event. The most famous one, obviously, is the All-Star Saturday, NBA All-Star Saturday, with Grand Slam Australia taking place afterwards. And they did it again here with this slam dunk collision where they split the two shows. They split the show into 2 shows, I should say. So you had your normal Saturday collision. Instead of doing that, they split it up. They did one show Saturday after the games of NCAA March Madness, and then one Sunday after the game for March Madness. So I'm just kind of talking about, hey, this is an experiment they're trying. So far, it's worked. Let's see if it's going to work some more. And by the way, Joe, you talked about it on your Thursday, or your Flagship Plus, I should say, this week on flagshippatreon.com. But it worked. It worked amazingly well doing this yet again. So AEW Collision, Saturday, March 22nd, 554,000 total viewers and a .20 in the 18 to 49. Now, that's the highest overall viewers and the highest 18 to 49 since December 21st, 2024, when, if you read my piece, if you're kind of picking up what I was laying down, that was when Collision had a lead in from the college football playoff game. So that was the first time they kind of tried it out and saying, hey, Collision's going to get preempted at its normal time. What if we put it on after a big sporting event? What's it going to look like? How many viewers can they maintain? What's good? So yeah, this was as good as any Collision show since that last lead-in from the college football playoff game. Now, this show, we got the quarter hours, thankfully, which helped us out a little bit. The show started at 1.24 million total viewers for Daniel Garcia versus Adam Cole, which obviously is a very good lead-in, having 1.24 people, 1.24 million people watching at the beginning. And it ended with 349,000 for the Powerhouse Hobbs and Conglomeration versus Don Callis family match. Now, that is 2:06 a.m. Eastern. So we're deep into the night, Saturday night Eastern. And as you pointed out in your Flagship Plus, there are going to be stupid people out there, very dumb, very stupid people that are going to say, oh, they started at 1.24 and they ended with 349,000. That didn't work. What a disaster. And those people are dumb, and they don't understand TV, and they don't understand the business, and they don't understand ratings, and they don't understand anything. They're dumb. Don't listen to those people anymore. Right? Like, they're just, they're lost. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Look, the thing about it is, and it didn't end at 12:09 a.m. 12:09 a.m., which isn't really, it's still the middle of the night, but I think you said 2:09 a.m. is when the show ended, but it was actually 12:09 a.m. But yeah, it's become almost like an IQ test, right? When you see people break down the quarter hours and the ratings of these collision shows that are following these big lead-ins, anyone who tells you that they failed or it didn't work because of the steep loss in viewership from start to finish is a total buffoon that you could ignore moving forward. And they're exposing themselves as not understanding TV or understanding how these ratings work or understanding the basic concept of lead-ins and why they work. Okay. Because as Rich just laid out, the Saturday show started off with 1.24 million viewers for the first 6 minutes. It averaged 1.24 million viewers the first 6 minutes. But the first full quarter hour of the show from 11:15 to 11:30, okay, even though they lost 600,000 viewers, that first full quarter hour averaged 647,000 viewers.
At what, 11 p.m.?
At 11:15 to 11:30 p.m.,
yeah,
it averaged what a Dynamite averages in prime time.
Right. If you can't see
why that's a massive win.
It's a huge win for AEW and an even bigger win for WBD, which would be airing fucking King Kong or whatever at that hour.
And knows what.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Some movie that would be getting 100,000 people watching at best.
Right. Because what you're doing here is you're not only getting holdovers from the basketball game, and look, a lot of them are going to change the channel. You're also combining that with the wrestling audience that's coming in to watch the wrestling. It's brilliant, and it has worked every time. And I think Grand Slam
it worked
Australia,
for Slam Dunk. You had wrestling fans tuning in to watch Grand Slam Australia that ended up watching the end of the Slam Dunk. So it works for WBD in that sense.
Yeah,
and
they come in at the end of the show. It works on both ends. So, and I think the All-Star Saturday night, we get the Grand Slam Australia is the one that really opened their eyes to it. And we even said, we predicted this was going to happen because we came on the show that week. You can go back and listen. And we said, they need to figure out how to do this more often.
Right.
Remember
I mentioned March Madness. We talked about the NHL playoffs. We talked about the NASCAR race coming up in a couple of months.
Yeah.
We talked about the NBA playoffs. Like there's a lot of opportunities for this coming up.
Because Collision does so much better in the middle of the night after these sports events than they do in their regular time slot. If they could do this every week, they would. And this argument that, you can't keep moving the show around. Why? It does better when you move it around. That's all that matters. It's like 647,000 viewers for that first full quarter hour. So this argument that everyone, quote unquote, changes the channel isn't even true. Rich, it's not true. They stick around. Quarter hour 3, 11:30 to 11:45, 437,000 people were still watching. Again, that's like what, 100,000 more or than watch Collision when it's on in primetime. They're crushing it, and the demo numbers too, which we're not even talking about, just absolutely crushing it in the demo numbers in the 18 to 34, and then the end of the show, which is 12 midnight. 384,000 people were still watching, which is more people than watch the show when it's on in prime time. And so if you can't see, that's a win. And then it had a 9-minute overrun that averaged 349,000 viewers and a 0.11 in the demo. They did a 0.11 in the demo at 12:09 a.m. And Collision in its regular time slot often does a 0.10. So again, this was a big winner. Andrew Zarian reported that they're going to do something with the NHL playoffs because why the fuck wouldn't they? They're going to try to take advantage of this every single time they can because it puts way more eyeballs on the show. And only a dunce would look at these quarter-hour charts and conclude that, everybody they do a remarkable job holding the viewers.
They do, yeah. The part that I like, you talked about the Saturday show and the Sunday show too. The one that really got me.
We're gonna get to Sunday.
Just on Saturday. Yeah, if you want to, I'll move on to the Sunday one.
Let's finish Saturday because I want to set this up for Sunday.
All right, fine. So yes, let's go with Sunday, and then there's the point that I'm going to bring up about people, even anybody who says, they didn't hold the viewers. Like there is one quarter hour in that I was just like, oh my God, they held
let's do
many people.
Sunday right now then. Let's do it so you can make your point.
Yeah.
So Sunday was even more impressive. They inherited 1.74 million people on Sunday. Okay. For the first minute, 11:14 to 11:15. The first full quarter hour on Sunday. This might be what you were going to talk about. The first full quarter hour on Sunday, 11:15 to 11:30, averaged 893,000 viewers
on Sunday at 11:15 p.m. Like
when everybody's asleep for work tomorrow, they averaged nearly 900,000 viewers from 11:15 to 11:30. If you think the headline is that they lost 900,000 viewers from the first minute, you're a dunce.
Right.
There's no other way to describe you.
It's what I always like to say. You're either lying or you're dumb. Pick which one.
Yeah, one or the other.
You're either lying or you're dumb. You have to pick. It has to be one of those two.
These two shows were a bigger success than Australia.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And splitting them was the right thing to do, because if you would have aired the full 2 hours on Saturday, it would have kept losing viewers deep into the night. The way they did it by splitting it is they ended up doing higher averages each night, because that second hour would have killed them. Because now you're going up to 1 a.m. You're going past 1 a.m. if you do the second hour. So WBD splitting them was a brilliant decision. And as a result, it was even more successful than Australia. 893,000 viewers at 11:30, 594,000 viewers at 11:45, 446,000 viewers at midnight on a fucking Sunday. I mean,
they ended. They had 324,000 people for the main event, which is at 12:15 a.m. Monday morning.
Yeah.
What? How do you?
That's incredible audience retention.
If you come, like you said, if you come away from that saying that they lost viewers and that's the story, then you're lying or you're dumb. It has to be one or the other.
That second quarter hour on Sunday did a 0.34 in a demo. When's the last time Dynamite did a 0.34 on prime time on a Wednesday? Fucking 2021. Right? You have to go back to like 2021.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure. Like, I could do it if you needed to, but yeah, it's a while. You got to go back a while. I'll tell you that.
These are such massive successes. It's crazy. Like, you know, and look, the other thing I see is like, AEW. So, like, first of all, do you think Tony Khan is the one making this decision? WBD is making this decision. Why? Because they know their business,
right?
And they know television. And they know this is the smart way to go at it.
Maybe he presented at one point the willingness to do this for them, and now they're kind of dictating moving forward what's going to happen.
I'm sure he's in on the conversation, but he doesn't decide when his fucking show airs.
No, he doesn't say, hey, guys, we're splitting Collision, 2 parts. You're going to put one of them on Saturday after NCAA, and then you're going to put the other one on Sunday after NCAA.
And then they're going, yes, sir.
And that's the final answer.
And then David Zaslav is going, yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Khan. Right. Not exactly how the business works. Yeah, not exactly how the business works.
I mean, when you break down. And the funny thing is, they all use Brandon's chart, right? Like, all these people use Brandon's chart. And the funny thing about it is he provides a trend line. Like, it's on the fucking chart, Rich Craich. It's right there. And they still can't figure this out. People still cannot figure this out, despite the fact that the trend line is right on the fucking chart.
And the ratings are above the trend line by a lot.
Like, by a lot.
Right.
By a lot. And I was wrong about something, because when you pitched March Madness, I was like, there's not a lot of people watching by the end. They inherited 3.3 million viewers on Saturday. Well, they didn't. I'm sorry. That's wrong. There were 3.3 million viewers watching at the end on Saturday. There were less on Sunday.
Gonzaga and Houston.
Right, which was a good game between two high-profile teams. And there were less on Sunday watching by the end, but they inherited more viewers on Sunday versus Saturday, which is weird for whatever reason. Probably because it was the 1 minute on Sunday versus the 6 minutes on Saturday. So you could see what a difference 5 minutes makes. In 5 minutes, you're losing about 500,000 viewers.
I wonder. I do wonder if there's something to be said that maybe you had a bunch of people on Saturday that said, "Hey, that wrestling thing was kind of cool. I'll stick around for a little bit longer."
Possible too. That's possible
right?
too.
It's not impossible.
And you know what makes this even more impressive? Okay. When Collision came on both nights, there was still one other game on one of the other networks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which makes it even more impressive because they were still going up against the last March Madness game of the day. Neither one of which were good. They were both, I think both of them were late second half and largely decided, but still it's another game on and most people are going to go flip to whatever the last game is. So I think these numbers would have been even a little higher if they were following the very last game of the night. But either way, there is no other conclusion to draw other than this. I mean, it's preposterous to think otherwise. I mean, on Sunday, they were averaging more viewers in the demo than they usually average in total in their regular time slot. So, yeah, and they're going to do something with the NHL game, and
there's another telltale sign to know that this is working is, and this is going to be crazy, they keep doing it. WBD keeps doing it. Yeah. So that's a very good way to tell if it's working or not, is if their broadcast partner says, hey, we want more of this. And there's going to be more of it. Absolutely. They'd be stupid not to do it for the NHL playoffs. They'd be stupid not to do it for the NBA playoffs. They'd be stupid to not do it for the July NASCAR race or whatever that's on Saturday nights, or June, I think, the NASCAR races. I mean, they'd be stupid not to just do it as many times as possible. And, the major sports are going to have precedent over Collision, but Collision shouldn't take that week off. Because it's a bonus when they get preempted. Right.
It's very clearly a positive when they get preempted now.
And I don't know. I mean, I think most of our listeners know this, but you always get people that are like, well, just, put it on Max or do it on Max or have people go to Max. Why would Warner Brothers want people going on to Max and not watching their television shows? What are you talking about? Follow the money. To use insert the Jesse Ventura gif right here. Follow the money. The money is still in linear television. The money is still in advertising, especially when it's March Madness, NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, the NASCAR race in June. They want you watching that. They don't want you going to Max, to whatever amount of people would go to Max to watch Collision. They don't want that. That's stupid. That doesn't help them at all.
No, again, it's almost at this point an IQ test, or maybe more appropriately, it's a clear-cut way to see if the person doing the analysis knows anything about television ratings, and wrestling, and how wrestling and television work. It's as clear-cut a way as you can see. Anyone who has any analysis of this stuff, other than it's a massive success that they should continue to try to leverage.
You don't have to talk about TV. If you don't understand the TV business, you don't understand the sports. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we don't talk about in this show that we don't understand. We talk about the sports TV business and ratings and all that stuff because I think we have a pretty good handle on it. We understand it.
We follow it out, and we follow that stuff outside of this. Yeah, exactly. So we kind of understand it.
And I think that's an important distinction, that a lot of these people don't follow it outside. They follow their wrestling people. They've covered wrestling for years. They watch wrestling.
They know the Monday Night Wars.
They know the Monday Night Wars, and they just think of it as they don't know shit, though. If you're not following these different outlets, if you don't follow what's going on at Puck, and if you're not following what's going on in other places and Sports Media Watch and all these, if you don't follow it beyond wrestling, you don't know what you're talking about a lot of times.
To them, it's line goes down, chart bad.
Right.
That's it's ridiculous. They don't know what they're saying. It was that Justin LeBar was the one who said, on Saturday that, they should have aired it on 8:00 at Max instead of putting it on after the basketball. And it's just that immediately exposes him as completely clueless.
There's no reason that doesn't benefit anybody.
Why are you going to throw away the better rating? Like, you're going to do the bet. Maybe he doesn't understand that and he doesn't. He doesn't understand that they're going to do a much better rating than they're going to do.
And why again? So let's say there's 100,000 people that are going to watch Collision on Max, right? At 8. Right. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's say 100,000. Yeah. Let's say 200,000. Fine. Let's give them 200,000.
Oh, no. Let's say every single person who watches on primetime the week before is going to watch.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
300,000. That's 350,000 people or whatever.
So why would WBD want 350,000 people that could potentially be watching the March Madness games and will probably watch Collision after the March Madness games? Why would they want them to go to Max at 8 p.m.?
Why are you going to herd them to Max? And by the way, you're not getting all of them either. But to make our point, even if you're getting every single one of them and you're getting a fraction of them, you wouldn't even be getting 100,000 of them. Let's be honest. Okay. What do you gain by doing that?
Nothing.
What's the gain? But when people challenged him and said, Bozo, Grand Slam Australia crushed it and did better numbers, what do you think his response was?
They lost.
Chart down. Line go down, chart bad. Everybody switches.
Despite the fact that at like 1 a.m.
they had over 300,000 viewers at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And the entire 2 hours of Grand Slam Australia crushed the trend line, crushed what they do in prime time. The data's right there in front of these people, and they still can't see it. And they still offer god-awful analysis.
Right.
And have no idea what they're talking about. No clue. Because this is even more dramatic thing. They did even better than Grand Slam Australia with these two. And it was a stroke of genius splitting them up. I would have never thought of that.
I thought it was a little wonky when they announced that they were doing I was like, that's a little wonky. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah. Now you see the mindset.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, that second quarter hour on Sunday that did 893,000 viewers, that would have been the sixth quarter hour on Saturday and would have done 300,000 viewers. You see? It was brilliant. And now that we see it, now it's like, it clicked for me. I'm like, that fucking makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They got two for one here with massive numbers. And what did AEW get out of it? Way more eyeballs on their fucking show. I wish those collisions would have been better shows. I didn't think they were very good shows.
Yeah, they were just, I will say one thing that they did do that I like, and I don't know if anyone's listening from there, but good idea, right into the matches. Now, I would have had the matches be a little hotter, a little bit better, but no bullshit. They knew that audience only had a couple minutes or whatever, and they got right into the action, which I thought was really cool. But again, I would have maybe done
the shows weren't that good. That was the problem. Grand Slam Australia was a great show.
And you started the show off with the exact right match. You started off with Will Ospreay hitting the ring, and it's like, oh fuck yeah, this is going to be incredible. All right, here we go. So yeah,
the audience retention on Sunday especially is really incredible when you look at it.
Oh, for sure.
Oh my god, I mean, fuck, man. When else are you?
800,000, 893,000. When did they have?
The concept of a lead-in is not new. This is how TV has worked since the 1950s.
Yeah, again, that's what you're saying when people just are so wrapped in, I cover wrestling, so I have to cover ratings because of the Monday Night Wars, so here's my very basic bullshit. But they did lead-ins in the Monday Night Wars, too. You were just too dumb to notice it, I guess, or you were 12 years old or whatever.
Do they understand where the concept of overruns came from?
Right.
Probably not.
Why did Nitro go until 10:05 every week? Huh? I wonder. It's
they don't get it, and it's just line go down, chart bad.
Yeah.
And it's just so bad, and it exposes these people. But the problem is some of these people do have large outlets, and people see it and then they trust it and it poisons the entire well.
Right.
And you mentioned it before, and it's something I mentioned behind the paywall on Flagship Plus. If you don't understand something, you don't have to have an opinion on everything. If you don't understand TV ratings, if you don't have a basic grasp of this stuff, no one's telling you have to talk about it. You can cover wrestling without covering this stuff. And the comparison that I used on Plus was I never offer opinions on the world of Joshi. Why? Because I don't fucking watch it. My opinion on what's going on in Marigold is worthless. It's a complete and utterly worthless opinion. Why would I ever comment on anything happening in Stardom or Marigold or Tokyo Joshi Pro? That's the equivalent here. You have people commenting on shit that they're completely ignorant to. And you don't have to have an opinion on something that you don't know anything about. Just stick to what you talk, break down booking. Talk about the matches you liked or didn't like. Do scoops if that's your thing.
Right.
Look at Sean Ross. He's a great example. How many times has Sean said, I don't know anything about ratings, so I don't talk about them? He says it all the time. He doesn't get involved in that world. It's not what he does. Right? If it's not something you do and it's not something you specialize in, or if it's not something you know anything about, just stay the fuck out of the conversation. because you make everything worse. You make everyone's job harder when you talk your bullshit and don't know what you're talking about. So, and this specific topic, when it comes to ratings, this is the indicator. This is the big tell as to whether someone knows what they're talking about or not. If they don't get this right, if they think line go down, chart bad, you can disregard anything else they say from that standpoint, from ratings. They don't know. They're proving their ignorance. So and I guess Zarian said on his podcast, and he's plugged into the media TV side. He's got obviously has had contacts in that world for many years, that they're trying to cook something up for the NHL, which they're going to cook something up for every sporting event now, every single one. And they're not all going to have the effect that this one had. I wasn't expecting March Madness to lead in with 3.3 million viewers. That's what they got from the NBA All-Star Weekend, right? Right in that range. Like
This March Madness has been huge ratings wise. I think it's been the best one in decades. I think is what the number I saw recently. So
yeah, and it hasn't even been a great tournament either. And there hasn't been a lot of upsets or buzzer beaters. It hasn't been a super exciting tournament, but it's crushing it. It's one of those things where it's like, again, everyone thinks TV's dying, and then you have something like this where it's like out of nowhere, it's just fucking crushing it. If people want to watch something, they're going to find a way to watch it. So, and you have to think some people are watching it on Max, right? It's not zero. I think I still hold firm that there's not that many people watching AEW on Max. Dave Meltzer seems to disagree. I don't agree with his analysis on that, but it just goes to show that when there's a big event that has interest, there's stuff can still do numbers. So, in AEW this week, Dynamite did the usual rating it always does, but I did notice
ticking up. That number's ticking up though.
A little bit. What stood out at me about this week's Dynamite number was the 1/4 hour that had a nice little pop to it was the Mox Swerve confrontation. And I talked about this on the Thursday TV review. Once again, $5 tier behind the paywall. I feel like that's a hot main event. I feel like Mox Cope was not necessarily a hot main event, but it was supported by a stacked Revolution card, which is why that show did well. I feel like Dynasty, it's very clear that Swerve and Mox is going to be the hottest match and the most important match.
It'll be on their back. Yeah, it'll be on their back largely. And that does feel like a super hot show match.
Does, absolutely. It feels hot, and it felt hot last night. And I have to tell you, I think that Mox bump on the nail board has completely changed course. He was trending downward in the eyes of the fans. I think that revived him. I think that spot was so important for him. And I think that gave his title run a little more life here. I really do. But I also think if he beats Swerve, there could be some pushback on that from the fans. I think there could be some negative reaction if Mox comes out of that match with the title, especially from a certain segment of the AEW fan base. There's a certain segment of the AEW fan base that is very protective of Hangman and Swerve. Mm-hmm. Very protective of those two wrestlers. And there's a segment of the fan base where if the top of the card isn't built around one or both of those guys, it runs the risk of being rejected by that very vocal portion of the AEW fan base. And I'm not saying you need to specifically book just for those people, but the most hardcore AEW fans fall into that category. They are very much, this company needs to be built around Swerve and Hangman, preferably both, but one or the other. And if it's Mox or if it's Will Ospreay, whoever, that group of fans is going to reject it. I think the only top act that you could sneak in there that isn't one of those two guys would be Kenny Omega. I think he could survive that group. They'll accept him. Anyone else is going to struggle. So I think if Mox beats Swerve, that might be a little problematic from the standpoint of your most hardcore group of fans aren't going to like that. But with that said, and then I'll let you go, give your opinion on this. With that said, that super hardcore group, they're also the ones that are never going away. Okay,
they have stuck with it. Yeah, they might be angry. They might be angry online, but they have stuck with it.
They're going to give you negative reviews. They're going to shit on it, and Tony loves his social media. Tony's going to see a lot of shit if Mox wins that match. But at the same time, those are the people you can't run off, because that's the same. Also, the same group of fans that is never going back to WWE. They just don't like it. They like AEW. And
they may never have watched. They may never have ever watched WWE. They might be brand new fans.
They may have never. That's true.
Yeah.
But they may even hate WWE more than they like AEW. This group of fans I'm talking about. So at the same time, you can't really run them off, but it's nice when you keep them happy, because that also, it almost, in a way, artificially helps the vibes of the promotion, because they're the ones driving the discourse. You know what I mean by that? Like, it's those people driving the social media discourse. And I know you shouldn't put too much weight in that, but it's not completely meaningless.
No. You can't tailor your entire company to it, but you should be aware of it. Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting what they do, and we'll talk about it a little bit more next week, because believe it or not, Dynasty is coming up, guys, next Sunday. Next Sunday, not this coming Sunday, next Sunday, the 6th, and we'll obviously be doing Instant Reaction Live, $10 tier, flagship patreon.com, immediately following that show. But next week we'll preview that show and have a little bit more, maybe it'll be a little bit more clear after Dynamite. But I think what you're going to have to do is, if you're going to have Mox beat Swerve, it's going to have to be Paige has got to get involved. It's got to be. It can't just be like Mox can't just fucking hit the Death Rider on the guy and pin him 1, 2, 3. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think that's a good finish anyway. But
no,
I think people will accept Hangman costing Swerve the title.
Yes, I think
that story's the through line of the promotion, so you can do that.
For sure. I think they would accept that. I think they would accept that. It's going to have to be something similar to that. I think, to make it happen and get fans to at least maybe be okay. Now, I don't know if they're going to be 100% okay with it, but at least that's probably the only way that they'll swallow it. There's no way that Swerve can just straight up lose that match or whatever. Or you can't have Wheeler Yuta run in and hit a fucking drop kick on Swerve and then Mox pins him. That would be a disaster. That would put us right back to square one. And that'd be a bad finish too, again. So I think you have to have Hangman get involved in some way. Now, what's interesting about that though is obviously Hangman's become sort of a pseudo babyface in a lot of ways, and you maybe throw that away a little bit if he goes out there and costs Swerve the match. But we'll see. Maybe that'll be a little bit more clear next week how you get there and how you do it. But I think
people understand the dynamic between those two, though, and how,
especially when he's in the Owen. It's going to be Hangman's always said, I just don't want you to be the champion and all that sort of stuff. So maybe they'll rally behind Hangman winning the Owen and preventing Swerve from winning. I don't know. I think
you know what I think the play is? I think the play is Hangman somehow cost Swerve this match, and Swerve somehow cost Hangman to lose in the Owen.
That's exactly, yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to say is what you do then is Hangman gets to the finals of the Owen and Swerve comes out and goes, all right, motherfucker, and costs him. And then there you go. Now they have a match at Texas, all in Texas or whatever. Yeah.
Perfect.
Do a fucking Texas death match in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
On, right?
Hangman's specialty. Swerve wants it because he wants to hurt him. And now you have Okada versus
Kenny
Omega.
Okada, Hangman Swerve, Texas death match. That could work.
And whatever your world title match is going to be, probably if Will Ospreay wins the Owen, you have Will Ospreay in a world title match. That's a stacked fucking card. So, that sounds like a viable path to go down for all these people. I don't know what you do with MJF at that point. I thought he was going to have a series of matches with Hangman, but it appears as though he's doing something with Hurt Business or Hurt Syndicate. Now, I'm going to call them Hurt Business until the end of time. To do something with Hurt Syndicate now, I guess. But yeah, that all makes sense to me. But how many times can Will Ospreay lose? I mean, he lost to Swerve. If he wins the Owen and loses the Mox, are we really going to string this out until they feel like they're strong enough to run Wembley again?
Nah, I don't think you could do that. That's too long.
I feel like they have this guy who's begging to just break through, and they've just got him on pause. And I think it's a dangerous game to play. I think it's dangerous to keep a guy like that on pause.
Yeah, they're in an unfortunate situation where they have about 3 or 4 guys that feel like they're right there. You know what I mean?
Isn't that weird? And they're still kind of struggling.
Yeah.
But yet they have a bunch of guys that feel like they're on the precipice of deserving a major push. And while the arrow's pointing up a little, they still haven't broken out of their slump. They're still not ready to run anything larger than 4,000 seaters. But yet they have some guys that feel like if you run with them right now, if you give the ball to Swerve again, or if you finally flip the switch on Will, or if you go back to Hangman, those all feel like viable paths to success. But it's strange because we're not seeing like any signs of a complete turnaround.
Right. It's certainly not a boom. It's certainly not a boom period or anything right now.
No, it doesn't feel like 2021 right now, where it's like, oh, something's happening here. That's not. So it's interesting from that standpoint. But anyway, we got some other stuff to get to.
Yeah. Again, we'll do a more extensive preview next week.
Sure.
Yep. And then, of course, next Sunday, AEW Dynasty, Instant Reaction Live, $10 tier, flagship patreon.com. So let's go over some roster movement, free agent news going on in the wrestling world. We'll start off with this one that just dropped, I think yesterday. Saraya is out of AEW. She said that her and AEW agreed, and she has departed the company. Now, this is an interesting one because I believe she just recently signed a new contract. So I don't know if this was yet another example of someone going to Tony and saying, I want out, and Tony saying, you know what? Fine. Go. I don't care. I'm not going to hold you to your contract. If you want to go, hit the bricks. I don't know. I don't know what that, I don't know what they agreed to. I don't know what the agreement was. I don't know if the contract that was reported was actually signed. I don't know anything about that. All we know is Saraya is out of AEW. And as far as I remembered, she did recently sign a new contract. So I don't know, but she's gone and she had nothing but nice things to say about Tony Khan and AEW as she probably waltzes back into WWE.
I think, I don't remember whether she's just signed a new deal. I don't personally, but what I do remember is like a week ago, there was some quote out there from her from a podcast or something where she said the reason she's not on TV is they just don't have anything for her right now, and she'll be back when there's a good storyline. So it's funny how then a week later, she gone. So I don't know.
So September.
I'm not going to miss her.
I looked at February. Saraya confirms her AEW contract expires later this year. She says September. My contract will run out in September. So again, she was let out early then.
Yeah. I mean, Tony, he's got a pattern here from the standpoint of when someone's coming up, when their deal's coming up, he's not afraid to ice them out for those last few months. And in this case, just let them go entirely. So this isn't really outside of the norm for him. She hasn't been on TV in forever. I believe she has more than completed her usefulness to AEW.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like her run.
She completed her usefulness after about a month. And then I think what I will say, I think they did pivot her in the right way of realizing, okay, she doesn't have it anymore and she's not going to be a star. So we'll put her in the background and we're going to use her to get Tony Storm. We're going to use her to get Harley Cameron over. And then after that, we don't really have anything else for her. Which they did.
And they gave her a win in Wembley, which, okay, that's nice. That's fine. It's like, if they feel like that helped Wembley to have her on it, okay. I personally don't think she helped sell one ticket. Maybe they see it different. I would have never hired her to begin with. So yeah, I don't have any problem with letting her walk, even if she does walk right into WWE, which, okay, fine. I don't think she's going to make a difference there either.
Right, exactly. That's the type of one where if you wouldn't be worried for a second that she's going to go into WWE. And in fact, I would, if you're Tony Khan, again, you're playing this game and
you're playing Vince's game.
We're talking about this.
We
talked about this a couple weeks ago on that. I think that Tony has maybe realized, hold on a minute, I'm in a situation where if these people that I don't really have any plans for, if they want to go and leave and go back to WWE, that's fine, because eventually, like Vince McMahon was and correct with, you guys are going to feel like you have to hire these people and you're going to feel like you have to push them because, hey, we got someone else from the other guys. You keep doing that over and over and over again, and it starts making your show feel like it's a lot of cast-offs from the other company, and it makes the people that are on your roster look around and go, what the fuck? You're going to push another AEW person that came in, that person leaves, and now you're going to hire them and they come back and they jump over they get ahead of me again. They go ahead in the pecking order. They climb the ladder quicker. Okay. That has a shelf life. Yeah, that has a shelf life.
The whole Jade thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, and not every not every situation where someone's contract runs out or if someone's let go does it have to be contentious. And this doesn't sound like it is. So she had a deal.
It seems like she probably went to Tony and said, hey, look, I don't know that I really have a future here. And Tony probably said, I agree. I don't think you do.
She may have said, hey, look, I'm done in September and I'm not interested in re-signing. You don't really do anything with me. And Tony might be looking at it as, well, I've done everything I wanted to do with her.
Right.
And she is, without question, falls into the category of way more expensive than what she gives you in return.
Yes. Return on investment is not good.
Cheap.
No.
Yeah, there's no return on investment with her. So, and Tony disagrees because he hired her and he put her over in Wembley. But even if he felt like he got what he wanted to get out of her, and it's time to move on. The movement is healthy and good.
Very good.
And I think you could be right about maybe Tony's new strategy, where it was like he was deathly afraid of jumps because of the perception of it. But now that he has seen some jumps kind of not work out, I mean, outside of Cody and Punk, which jumps have worked out? And I mean, that's Cody and Punk. They were going to work. I mean,
right.
You know, outside of Hulk Hogan jumping, it's like, all right, yeah, those guys were going to fucking
right.
But like, you look at these others, Brian Pillman Jr., complete and total bust.
Nah, just a guy, just a roster
Ricky
fodder.
Starks, complete and total bust. Penta, jury is certainly out.
Oh yeah, that jury is very out, I think.
Came in hot, of course, and it's too early to say. And same thing with Phoenix, but
look at it this way with Penta. Is he hotter than he was when he came in? No. I mean, nobody could answer that, right? Like but I'm going to give that time. Of course.
Jade Cargill, bust.
Oh yeah.
From stepping out of limos, she's going to be the next big thing, to holy shit, she can't work. We can't put her on TV. So we're going to put her in a tag team. She gets hurt, comes back, pisses off the entire locker room. And everybody hates her in the women's locker room. And she isn't nearly the star that everybody thought she was instantly going to be turned into by the company. I'm sorry, Jade Cargill, I'm calling that one a bust.
Oh, that's no. Lock that in. I mean, right now they're trying to figure out the last little bit that they could squeeze out of that. But I would not be. I mean, by a year from now, I think we'll be. I don't even know if she's with that company anymore. I mean, it feels like, okay, this is our last effort to try to see if we can make anything of this. But it does. No, she feels very, very busty at this point right now, for sure. I think that's fine.
Who are we forgetting?
Ethan Page. I guess that's been.
Okay,
he's been better. He got into a better position, but I wouldn't call him like oh man, look at you let Ethan Page go, and now look at him. It's like, okay, he's
Yeah, I think Ethan Page made the right move for his career.
Correct.
And I think Ethan Page, if I were a pro wrestler and you told me let's assume the money's equal for the purposes of the discussion. If I was a pro wrestler and you told me I could have Ethan Page's AEW push or Ethan Page's NXT push, I'm taking the NXT push.
Of course.
So he made the right move. But is Tony regretting that?
No.
Not a fucking chance.
No, exactly. That's it. Yeah, that's exactly the way to put it. I think he is in a better place for sure, but that's not a perception war. Oh, fuck, we let Ethan Page go and now look at him. It's like,
I mean, it's Ethan Page.
Right.
It's like, okay, Shawn Spears is a current champion in WWE.
Right. That's not a perception war loss either.
Exactly. Like, do you think Tony gives a shit that he doesn't have Shawn Spears anymore, or he's kicking himself for that one like he might be for Cody or whatever? No. So that one, I can't call Shawn Spears a bust in WWE. It's not a perception war loss. So maybe Tony is taking on, that Vince quote that raised all of our eyebrows and made us go, what the fuck? When Vince, and I'm paraphrasing, said, they have a lot of stars over there. Maybe we can give them some more. And everyone was like, what? Maybe we can give them some more. I think that was Vince talking out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll just overrun them with.
Yeah, they're going to feel obligated to hire all these people, and then they're going to look around in their locker room, and it's going to be half people from us, and people are going to watch their show and be like, oh my God, there's a lot of ex-WWE people on the show, and that's exactly what happened. And the locker room got pissed about it, and the viewership audience started saying, what the fuck? All these guys are ex-WWE guys. What the hell happened here?
Dude, and it was It was fucking Miro, Andrade, and Tom End.
Right, Lana and Miro.
The three biggest head case pains in the ass possible, too.
Uh-huh.
That you don't want anywhere near your roster.
Yeah.
And Tony hopefully has learned his lesson.
Wow.
Yeah, they took him back.
Wow.
They took two of them back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Someone wants him near their roster because he's bringing him back. So
Andrade is posting sad tweets sitting in stairwells. I'm waiting.
Yeah. Oh my God. Who could have possibly predicted?
I don't know.
Who could have possibly predicted
could have?
that Andrade would? Well, and I think that blends perfectly into this person. Now, Mariah May, her AEW contract is apparently coming due later this summer per a Fightful report. Now, I don't know if we have an exact date on that, but sometime later this summer. She's an interesting one where if she's done and she has her heart set on going to WWE, or whatever it may be. Like, what I'm going to do if I'm Tony Khan in this situation is I'm going to offer her a deal. I'm going to give her whatever offer I think is fair and say, here you go. Here's the offer. And if she rejects it or wants to go to WWE, I don't get into a big bidding war. I go, okay, I give you my best offer. You want to go to WWE? That's fine. And you move on because I think you got a decent amount out of her. You told a very good story with the Timeless Tony thing, and it had a bunch of, I was critical of it at many points, but in the end, I think it worked out pretty well for everybody involved, and you have a perfect ending. If that is the end of Mariah May's run, you nailed it. It literally said the end, for God's sakes. She went to a table and it said the end. And you know what? In the end, because people always say, well, she's got to put someone else over on the way out. You can't just let her leave. She did. She put Tony Storm over.
Just put Tony Storm over.
Tony Storm is not
counterpoint.
41 years old, people. She's 29. So if the idea was we'll bring Mariah May in, we're going to do the all about Mariah's story. And in the end, she's going to put over 29-year-old Tony Storm. And Tony Storm is going to become a bigger star at the end when it's all said and done. That happened. And she did put her over, and Tony is a bigger star.
And Tony is a bigger star.
If that's the end of it, then that's okay. I'm fine with that. If I'm AEW and Tony Khan, I have a perfect conscience. If you want, I'm going to give you a very good offer. What I think is going to be, you don't lowball her. You don't give her some bullshit offer. You give her a very good offer. And if she says no or she wants to negotiate, I go, you know what? You shake the hand and say, we had a very good run. If you ever want to come back and do business, we'll be here at the end. And you move on. I think it's perfectly fine if she moves on.
I agree. I think now it was late. I think it was later reported that he has an option. There's a team option there.
Okay.
Which, if that's the case, it kind of changes the matrix here.
For sure. Then you pick
analysis.
up that option. Yeah, you pick up that option probably.
So you could just pick up the option, right? And give her a little raise with it because she's earned it, right? So that's how you properly handle that. You pick up the option and you tack on another couple 100,000 or whatever percentage you want to tack on from there. You don't have to do that, but I think it's the right thing to do in this situation. It's a goodwill gesture. You've got the money now. I think you do it. But otherwise, I completely agree. And that was my take on it when the story broke. She did her big job on the way out. I think it would almost take some of the edge off of it if she came back and lost another program to someone else. It would be awkward.
I agree. Yeah, if you're planning on, or if you get an idea that she's not going to resign, that she's not going to stay, then you're done. I think at that point you go, okay, great. We told a perfect story with you, I think you likened it on your Thursday Dynamite review to like a territory style.
Mm-hmm. It's you
come
in
for the Flagship Plus. It was the exact territory run. You came in, you did your angle, you lost on the way out, and you went away. There you go.
Yeah. You came into the territory. It was, you came into the territory as an ally of the big baby face, or in that time, I guess she was a heel, but you get
an unknown and a relative unknown too.
As an unknown, you did the turn. You did a turn angle that got over. You won the person's title. You did a feud that got over, and then you put the person over in the end. This would be where, in the old days, you'd be moving on to the Southwest Territory to feud with Tully Blanchard. Yeah. You're done.
Do a little run in Florida. Go see what's going on in Florida. Yeah.
You're calling up Eddie Graham to see if he's got something. He's got a spot for you. Maybe you're going up to Portland to mix it up with Buddy Rose, but you're leaving the territory because it's mission accomplished. You worked on top. You made your money. You're moving on. Okay, that's how that in that scenario, you wouldn't want to have that person do a bunch of more jobs on TV. No, just you're done. It's a clean break. It's over. Okay. This isn't this whole thing of doing jobs on the way out. Okay. this isn't some mid-card. Okay, if let's say, let me try to think of somebody good here on the roster. If AR Fox isn't pushed hard enough, give me someone who's like pushed decently. If Brian Cage's deal came up and it was understood he wasn't going to re-sign and you got another month with him, that's a guy you can beat on Dynamite every week and beat him on. That's someone you beat on the way out, right? And have them do jobs on the way out. This scenario is not that. This person did their job. They got the other person over. There's no reason to drag her back to TV and put her in a feud with fucking Red Velvet or something.
Right, that'd be so bad. That would be bad, yeah.
I wouldn't do that, okay? But anyway, if Tony has the team option, which he loves to put those team options on the contracts, this is someone from the sports world, so of course he takes advantage of that. He's probably just going to trigger that.
Yeah, so. Given his past of not picking up those options, he might want to pick up this option here just in case.
I think he's going to trigger. And tying into that is the other piece of news that came out after I recorded was that Mina Shirakawa is coming in full time. So that's even more reason I think May ultimately ends up staying. The audio I did was great audio, but it was obsolete 10 minutes later.
Don't you hate that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the game. But if Mina's coming in and she's got a team option, I feel like you keep her. Because now there's something you can do that's in that universe of what she was doing already because Mina's coming in. So there's things you could do there. So I don't know. At this point, I think they will keep her around. I probably should keep her around.
With the option, yes. I don't get into a giant bidding war for her, but yeah, if you got the option for sure. And
yeah, I'm with you. I'm total lockstep.
Yeah. Anthony Greene, he is done with Pro Wrestling Noah. Wrapping up.
Yeah, and he announced that. Reporting on that was Anthony Greene. He announced that himself. So source us, the Falcons. So that's still the best.
Literally us, the Falcons.
Literally us, the Falcons. There are a lot of good tweets historically. That still might be my number one.
Right.
I love that fucking thing. So
the context of that for people that don't know,
they announced that they've released a player.
Yeah. So the Falcons Twitter account was at Falcons, we have
official Falcons Twitter,
at Atlanta Falcons, we have released, here we go. I got it. Breaking news: we will not pursue negotiations with Vic Beasley this offseason. Now the guy, unfortunately, it's been deleted, but it is saved to history.
Yeah.
The guy replied who's the source on this? And the Falcons
source? Yeah. The tweet was source ?
Yeah, and the guy at Falcons, at Atlanta Falcons said, literally us, period. The Falcons. It's so good.
People are so used to not trusting sources.
Right.
It's I don't know if that guy was just fucking around or if he was just if he's just stupid. But what a great tweet. So anyway, the source here was literally Anthony Greene.
Literally me, Anthony Greene. Yeah.
Not only announced he was done with Noah, he did it in kanji. He announced it in fucking the Japanese gimmick.
Yeah, good for him.
So, look, Anthony Greene, good looking guys, nice little run in Noah as a mid-card guy. I can't see him going back to WWE. They've been there, done that. So they're probably not interested. I don't see him as an AEW guy. I do see him as a potential ROH guy. I could totally see bringing him in to work ROH. Outside of that, Impact, I guess, is always a possibility, but we're about to talk about Impact. Uh-huh. They are continuing their cost cutting and using discount talent. And I'm not saying that Anthony Greene is some guy who's going to command hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they just stop.
They don't need a guy like that anymore because they have an influx of NXT talent that they could use.
That's an excellent point.
If they have a little spot in the mid card for a guy, they can just say, "Hey, who do you have from NXT?" and they can give them fucking Hank or Tank. You know what I mean? Fucking Hank and Tank could come up and do a run.
Sure,
they don't need Anthony Greene.
And not only that, they just stopped using a bunch of people at Anthony Greene's level.
Yeah,
because they presumably don't want to pay these people. You know what I mean? So that's a little dicey. Would the world of MLW embrace Anthony Greene? Absolutely. Could I see him ending up in MLW? For sure.
Sure. Who couldn't?
NWA, again, I think he's a little above Billy's usual pay grade. Billy likes to use very low-level indie people and people that
he's too good for the NWA.
I feel like he probably, again, is a little too expensive for Billy's blood. And maybe Anthony Greene sees the NWA as bad for him perception-wise too. So I don't see that as a fit. So if I had to make a prediction, I would say the ROH portion of the Tony Khan verse or the world of MLW. Because he's not a lucha guy, so he's not going to end up in, I can't see him ending up in CMLL. Absolutely not. AAA, maybe a 1% chance,
sure.
but I still don't even see it.
Yeah.
I don't think, unless Conan's a big Anthony Greene fan, and maybe he wants the metrosexual gimmick in AAA, but I don't see him in Japan anywhere else. I don't see him in Mexico. So to me, it's either ROH or MLW. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm at with him. I mean, is there another place in Japan maybe?
I don't
he pops
think so.
up. Not going to New Japan or anything like that.
No, he doesn't feel like a New Japan guy to
No,
me.
he doesn't. And Glee doesn't have the same money it did.
They don't have it. They're not going to pay for how many foreigners?
Exactly. Well, 2 years ago he would have been Glee bound for sure, but now that thing's not happening anymore. So
All Japan doesn't really use a bunch of foreigners either.
No, not
they have a small roster. They're operating on a budget, and he's not a Dragon Gate guy, and there's nowhere else to make money. So from his standpoint, there's nowhere else to make any money in Japan. So I don't know. Those are very limited options that I see for him. I'll give you a little dark horse. Okay. Maybe he's tight with Jake Lee. Good looking guys. Could Jake get him into New Japan?
Maybe. And that's what I wondered. I wondered if there was maybe some.
Is there a backdoor through Jake Lee?
Some sort of connection there. I don't know. Yeah.
Would Jake Lee have enough stroke to get a guy into New Japan?
Yeah. And it's Anthony Greene. It's that if you're going to use that stroke, that is his guy. He's a fellow good-looking guy. Maybe. Yeah. I can't rule out New Japan, but that's not inspired. Really.
If I'm Gato and I'm using Jake Lee as a trapdoor, I'm gonna see if Jake Lee knows Jack Morris's contract.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. If I'm gonna use
Morris,
that's a dude.
He'd be a star in New Japan.
Yes,
he'd be a star in New Japan. Gato would put that motherfucker in Bullet Club faster. He'd forget about
Bullet Club so quick.
He would kill David Finlay and bury him in the backyard if he got a hold of Jack Morris. David Finlay would be yesterday's news if he got a hold of Jack Morris. All right, let's move on. What else we got here with these free agents?
Maggie Lee, her TNA signing is finally official. It was kind of rumored for months and months and months, and it is finally official that she has signed with TNA, which brings us to the other TNA stuff.
Hold on with that.
Hold
on with that. So, rumored through back channels, okay? I know this broke today, but and I never talked about it publicly, but I in our little Voices of Wrestling office chat, my earliest mention of Maggie Lee signing with TNA was February 16th, well over a month ago, and me wondering when they were going to finally announce it. Okay. The thing with TNA is their signings, their independent signings often get leaked or get out there before they want to announce it, because TNA has a system set up where if you're a TNA talent, if you're an independent promoter, you don't pay the talent, you pay TNA, and then TNA pays the talent. Okay, do you understand what I mean by that? So you can negotiate your rate, but the indie promoter pays TNA, and then TNA pays you all your indie money with your regular money and your check or whatever. So what happens is indie promoters get tipped off when people are working for TNA because the talent tells them, oh, you got to go through the TNA office with my pay. You don't hand these people envelopes at the end of the night. You pay TNA. So it's been out there a while. I was at least privy to it even before February 16th. I had known about it even at least a month before that. So the Maggie Lee thing is not, this isn't something that happened last week. And then I think I saw a Fightful report that this was a signing by one of the recently the group that just by the executives that just got fired. This is a Gail Kim signing, which lines up with what I had heard for months and months, which to me, the reason they're rushing this out to announce it, even though it's been done for ages, is it seems as though they're looking for some good PR.
Little damage control, baby. Little damage control, baby.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're getting a lot of bad PR and a lot of negative feedback from all the office cuts they just made, especially the Gail Kim cut, because she's so popular, not only among fans, but among people that work in TNA. So all of those people are going to the reporters to complain about Gail Kim being fired and shit talking the company. And it's been a disastrous PR week for them. It's always bad PR when you fire a bunch of people anyway, but they fired a very popular person, both with their crew and their fans. So all of a sudden they're announcing, oh, well, we just signed this very popular indie wrestler. Look, we're not just cutting jobs, we're adding jobs. And I could tell you that tomorrow, because this show's live on Thursday, tomorrow they're going to announce the re-signing of Jason Hotch, which Jason Hotch isn't exactly a big star. He's an undercard prelim guy who's been working there off and on for a couple of years. But why that's significant, and by the time a lot of you listen to this, they will have already announced it. If you're listening live, they're going to announce it on Friday. Why it's significant that they're going to announce the re-signing of Jason Hotch is, to me, that's the kind of thing that they normally wouldn't announce. That's a prelim wrestler, an undercard guy. If you're going to extend them, you extend them and you just keep it quiet. And if it gets out there, it's because Jason Hotch put it out there.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they want some PR wins this week.
They're looking for PR wins. They're looking for damage control, baby. So they announced the Maggie Lee signing on Thursday. They're going to announce that they've re-signed Jason Hotch on Friday. And who knows what they've got in the fucking kick.
What do we have? For something, anybody.
Anything,
come on.
Because I think what they want to make it look like, they're not just firing people; they're also spending some money.
Yes,
they're giving people jobs.
Bingo. And I think that's you want the okay. We just let 6 or 7 office people go, including somebody very popular. But look, on the flip side, we just signed Maggie Lee. We just signed Jason Hotch. We just signed this. So yeah, we're cycling people in and out, but it is not. No. It is not cost cutting. It is not anything like that. It's positive. So yeah, it's the positive PR of signing people, but it's also the positive PR of, we're not just releasing people, we're also, or firing people, we're also signing people. So yeah,
listen, no disrespect to Jason Hotch. That's not a formal announcement. That's, you offer the guy a new deal, he takes it, you shake his hand, he's on Impact every week. Like,
right. That's what I mean? One line in the Observer that just gets forgotten. Nobody really.
Exactly.
Yeah. TNA has Jason Hotch. Yeah. Last week, TNA re-signed Jason Hotch. That's it. You know, that's the line. It's just like,
Rich. I didn't even bother writing that up for the paywall. That tells you all you need to know. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a super significant. And again, no disrespect to him. Good for him.
Yeah, of course.
Good for Jason Hotch, right? Getting re-signed by TNA. But it's like, it just combined with this Maggie Lee thing, which I know for a fact that they've been sitting on for months for whatever reason. I don't know why their methodology when they want to announce they've signed. Maybe they didn't want to announce they signed her until they knew they were going to give her, until she had a spot on TV.
Or they were going to start using her. Yeah, until they were going to start using her or whatever.
Yeah, but now they need the positive PR. They need the damage control. So it's like, oh, well, let's announce some shit that makes us look like we're spending money and not just cutting money. So anyway, that's Maggie Lee, who you are very high on.
Yes, I think she's going to be a star. I think she's really, really good. Yeah, from the first time I saw her on the Indies, I was a big fan. I think she's got it. A lot of it factor. Black and Brave signee as well. So this also works too. TNA is the best, because I saw some people being like, oh man, AEW fumbled the bag. They should have got. I don't know. I think it would have been a really, really, really tough hill to climb for AEW to get her, because she's a Black and Brave signee. So she came from Seth Rollins' school. So that's an in, obviously. She's of a certain age that I think WWE is it for her. Like, that's the only thing she's... Now, you can always change that. She has worked at AEW before. I think she worked at AEW Dark before. I think she worked some prelims and stuff. That can always change, but it does feel like... And I think if you go to her Twitter account, like, there's a pinned post that's her, with her mom, and it's like, I told my mom to open this when I get signed to WWE or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just little stuff like that, where I think when she was coming up in the business, that's the only goal that she had, and I think it still remains probably her only goal. And TNA right now is a very good place to go if you want to eventually make it to WWE. So I think that would have been an uphill battle for her, but I think she's very good. Is she ready to be a every week TV wrestler? I don't know if she's quite there yet. And that's why I think TNA is a perfect landing spot for her right now. Where I think she's better than your regular Evolve women. She's not as good as like your current NXT women. That she as good as Julia and Vakir and those. No, she's right in that in between, and that's kind of exactly where TNA fits perfectly. So it'll be a good spot for her.
And she seems like she's someone, like you said, if you're coming from that training, I mean, that's where Nathan Fraser came from. Mm-hmm. And, at the time, Tony Khan absolutely tried to get that guy. He put him on TV. He put him on one of those weird non-Dynamite, or it might have been classified as a Rampage. But remember they did that weird special like on a Saturday night at midnight or something one time, and I think he wrestled like Scorpio Sky or something, or maybe Ricky Starks. He wrestled someone.
Yeah, someone like that.
And and they tried to get him, and I know they tried to get him, but that guy was he just was dead set on WWE, and that's just and I talked to people who know him, and they were like, Tony's not going to get him. They told me because at the time, what the hell was his name? Working name at that time? Ben
Carter. He was Ben Carter.
Ben Carter. He was the hottest guy in the indies in terms for work rate nerds because he was having all these great matches all over the place, and people were trying to nudge him to AEW, and people in the business, that heard our show and things like that, were always trying to tell me he's that guy's WWE or bust.
Right. If WWE wants him, that's where he's going to go.
Right. And he's going to wait for them to want him. Right. Like Tony has no chance, so, and that's exactly how it played out. And if she's from that school, I would assume that
I think it's similar. I think it's pretty similar in a lot of ways. I think she was probably holding out.
I think a picture emerged of her from years ago, like holding up some promise to herself.
It's what I talked about earlier. In her Twitter account, if you go there, there's a picture of her with a letter that she's giving to her mom. And she said, I told my mom to open this when I get signed to WWE or whatever.
Got it. Okay.
So it's like, and that's been on her Twitter account for years now. So it's like that feels like that was her singular goal. Now, obviously times change. And if, AEW gives you a multi-million-dollar contract, you of course sign it, but all things being equal, or at least some idea that WWE is going to sign it, I think she was going to lean that way no matter what.
There's someone in WWE right now whose mother basically made him promise that he'd be in WWE someday. If you don't think that shit weighs on it matters to people, you're crazy.
Yeah.
It's very meaningful. When your mother is like, I want you to be in WWE someday.
There's a certain generation that's it. That's the pinnacle. That's the pinnacle of the sport that you have achieved as a person if you're there. So
yeah. So Suit Williams pulled it up. It was Scorpio Sky over Ben Carter. Late Night Dynamite.
Late Night Dynamite. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like at midnight or something like that for whatever reason. I don't even remember why they did it, but smack dab in the pandemic too. So
yeah, they really, really tried to get that guy. Late Night Dynamite. Yeah, I don't remember anything about that, but there you go. All right. And then the Nomad, Bishop Dyer. Let's talk about Nomad. Yeah, your guy, the Nomad, finally popping up in some places. He did a shot for Maple Leaf, and of course, perfect landing spot for the Nomad Bishop Dyer, ML
Yeah, he said in an interview that he has committed to a bunch of MLW dates. Multiple dates, by the way. And he not only said that, he then put the company over big. He's like, oh, they're doing great things. I love their TV. They just moved to a larger venue in LA. He's not just coming in to work the battle riot, eliminate a few people, and then, piss off with kimchi. It looks like the Nomad Bishop Dyer is going to do at least have a little MLW run here. So, and then of course the Maple Leaf, and there's always the persistent rumors that New Japan might be bringing him in. Which,
you can't wait. You can't wait for the Nomad.
I'm
Bishop
curious.
Dyer.
I want to see it. I want to see what it looks like.
You want a G1. You want a G1 of the Bishop Dyer. I can tell.
Oh my God, I would love that. He would I want to see what it looks like, and whether it looks good or bad, I'm fine with it. I just want to see what it looks like.
Believe it or not, I did not watch. Did you watch the Maple Leaf Pro? Did you see him versus Tom Latimer at Maple Leaf Pro Mayhem Night 1?
Come on, Rich.
Okay, no, you didn't. Yeah, I didn't either.
Come on. March Madness, it's baseball season. Yeah. So, which is the perfect transition.
MLW. Yeah. Big things happening in MLW, man. This world never stops. And we got a press release from them earlier this week. Quote, Major League Wrestling today announced that more tickets are on sale now for their Los Angeles debut, MLW Battle Riot. What do we got here? 7. Battle Riot 7, following the move to a larger, upgraded venue, Thunder Studios Arena in Long Beach, California, on Saturday, April 5th. After selling out last week and shattering MLW's all-time box office record, the demand from West Coast fans has been unprecedented. In response, MLW quickly moved to Thunder Studios Arena to ensure more fans can be part of the league's biggest event of the year. So they were initially going to be at, Commerce Casino, and they decided, shit, we're selling this thing out. Let's move to a bigger place. So they're moving to Thunder Studios Arena, which presumably is a bigger place. And it says here that Thunder Studios Arena is a state-of-the-art facility that has hosted top-tier combat sports broadcasts for DAZN and Showtime boxing promotions. The venue brings upgraded amenities, expanded food and beverage options, and a more immersive atmosphere for fans. So many things much better than that shitty Commerce Casino we were going to run at. Fuck that place. Come to the Thunder Studios Arena for Battle Riot 7. I got to say, I got to hand it to Eric Bischoff, because obviously this is his idea. Battle Riot.
Battle Riot's a big hit.
Easy E does it again. Easy E does it again. Controversy creates cash yet again. Does. I'm with what's his face? Christian Colon. Even though he said this after Eric Bischoff had been fired, I think Eric Bischoff's doing a great job in charge of MLW.
Yeah.
He's right. Another win for Easy E.
Yeah, when you have a chance to bring in Eric, he comes up with innovative ideas like this.
Yep.
Like Battle Riot.
Now, sure, is this the 7th Battle Riot? Yes. But, I mean...
Is it, though?
Is it really? Yeah. Who knows? Who could say?
I don't know that. Who knows? Maybe he came up with it originally. I don't know.
Who knows that he didn't 7 years ago tell Court Bauer about?
I saw him tap that chin.
Yeah. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a Royal Rumble. It's going to be...
Yeah.
What's going to happen is 2 guys are going to start out in the ring, and then occasionally, at intervals, a guy's going to come out.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about, but he put pen to paper, and what an idea.
It's a big winner. They're changing venues. Good for them, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
They claim this is their biggest gate ever. Now, listen. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
Again, who could say?
We'll never know.
No. They continually, I'll tell you that. They are in the record-setting business of setting records. These guys every month are setting records.
Yes.
Similar to, and it's a good time to announce it, the Flagship podcast, yet again, record viewer or listenership again this month, record Patreon. So thank you, everybody, for doing that.
Is that true?
Nah, I don't know if that's true.
Who's to say?
Yeah. Again, you're not going to, call, find out. Call us on it. You're the only person, Joe, that could call me on that. So, you know what?
Yeah. I mean, it was close to the record.
Shit, it's record-breaking month. Another record-breaking month.
Listen, there's some number I can manipulate to make it the record month, right? I'm sure I could figure out a way to twist that because it's close. It was close enough. It was like a top 3 month, I think. So maybe if I do like growth versus the month before.
Right. There's a way. There's a way to MLW
There's
math
definitely
this.
a way. There's definitely a way. So who's to say? That's, maybe this is their
sellouts
biggest gate ever.
And record-breaking events. That's the MLW way for sure.
Yeah, well, when you're hot, you're hot. And MLW's hot.
When you have a great idea like Battle Riot from the mind of Eric Bischoff.
Maybe they should bring him back.
No.
Is he still on the loading dock?
Get me out of here. What am I doing here?
I'm on a loading dock.
Right.
So just walk in the door and get out of the loading dock. I don't understand.
I don't know.
Why are you out on the loading dock? Go outside and call an Uber. I'm on a loading dock.
Let me call Court Bauer. Hi. Yeah. Where's Court? It's terrible phone. It's terrible fake phone call. Anyway, the world of MLW does not stop. You want to know how much it doesn't stop, Joe? They announced this week that on May 2nd, 2025, a joint show with CMLL in Arena, Mexico. Main event, Mystico versus Kushida.
Yeah.
Semi-main.
He'll be healthy by Matt. He'll be healthy by Matt.
Yeah, he'll be ready to go. MLW National Openweight title. Matthew
Kushida,
Justice, Ultimo Guerrero, man. Oh, yeah. Go ahead with Kushida.
Hold on, though. Kushida looked good against Neon. Did you see that match?
Of course. We talked about it on the show. I love that match.
That match was so good that I recommended it to people.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I recommended an MLW match to somebody. Now, this Matthew Justice National Openweight defense against Ultimo Guerrero. You notice something about this?
No, I don't think anything jumps off. What do you got?
Rich Craich. It's not plunder.
Oh, you're right. Holy shit.
Matt Justice has to wrestle.
He does.
And he has to wrestle in Arena, Mexico against Ultimo Guerrero.
Raising the roof, yeah.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that. Now, I know Matthew Justice can wrestle. He's just always in plunder. When's the last time you just saw him in a catch can?
Grab a hold, yeah.
Right.
When's the last time you saw Matthew Justice do a drop toe hold into a headlock, a side headlock to slow his opponent down and keep him to the mat? Mm-hmm. Yeah, not often. That's incredible.
Not only that, I think he has to win.
Yeah, probably.
It's weird. So I think Ultimo Guerrero is going to win the MLW National Openweight title. Because how the fuck are they going to beat Ultimo Guerrero in Arena, Mexico with Matthew Justice?
Yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird.
Guerrero has to win, right? And Guerrero comes into MLW, so he can come into Cicero and drop it. Because Cicero's next.
Yes, possibly back to Matthew Justice.
Cicero is after May 2nd, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely after May 2nd.
No, it's like late May or whatever. Yeah, I think, right? I'm going. I don't know. I guess I don't know when I'm going.
I'll tell you right now. The Cicero show is
May 10th. May 10th. Okay.
So Ultimo Guerrero can win the title there and then defend it on Azteca Lucha and lose it to somebody. Or hold it.
Or possibly just lose it back to Matthew Justice too, which would be funny.
Yeah, the other thing is we always think these guys are going to lose these titles, but then they just like Mystico and
I just feel like these guys aren't going to come back to MLW, but they always come back to MLW. Mystico never leaves. I've been calling for Mystico to never come back to MLW for like a year and a half now, and he fucker shows up every time. So it's like, all right, I guess I have to just start figuring this. So Matthew Justice, Ultimo Guerrero, like you said, kind of a styles make fights sort of battle here. I got one for you, Joe. Neon versus Paul London. I don't know what Paul London they think they're getting, but
well, when people on Twitter saw this who don't believe it or not, there's people who don't watch MLW.
What the fuck? What is wrong with people?
I don't know. But when people on Twitter saw this and they looked up what Paul London looks like now, they were all blown away.
Yeah, because you think if you haven't watched the world of MLW, which again, what the fuck are you doing? You would see Paul London versus Neon and think, whoa, all right, that's pretty cool. I remember Paul London, but you don't. You don't remember Paul London.
Well, I think Paul London's going to work hard.
How do you not work hard in Arena, Mexico? Yeah,
I mean, he's been mailing it in for a decade, so I'm really going out on a limb here, but. I do feel like he might really, feel it back in his bones and say, you know what? I got another great one in me. Or he might just fuck around and do nothing.
Yeah, right.
I'm
not sure I don't know how capable he is of doing something. That's the only problem.
Oh, by the way, this isn't even close to the weirdest match on this show.
No, there's a much weirder one coming up right now. Let's do it. Oh, not right now. This one's not very weird at all. MLW Tag Team titles, Kojima and Okamura, one of the hardest strikers in Japan, defending their tag team titles against Magnus and Rahito. Yes.
That's right.
The
feud
awesome.
Continues.
I want to see how many bumps Okamura takes for Matt. Is he going to base for Magnus, or what are we doing here?
What's interesting about this is Okamura is like a completely different human in the world of MLW than he is in CMLL. But he's working Arena Mexico in this match. So he has to be his Arena Mexico persona.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's an interesting little wrinkle here in this one. So, and these teams have faced each other before. And these are two of my favorite teams. Now, look, they're not exactly the Fantastics and the Can-Am Express, but they're two of my favorite teams.
they're fun. They're fun. They're
fun teams.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it. I want to see if Okamura changes things up a little, because he has to drop his striking game because he's in Arena Mexico where he doesn't do those, where he's not one of the greatest strikers
in Japan. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He's gonna have to work more of a ground game, a little bit more lucha style than his usual hard strikes.
He might do some arm drags in this one. He might do some arm drags.
Think an arm drag or two? Yeah, maybe.
Tumble and point.
Tumble, roll through an arm drag. Yeah, maybe.
Tumble and point.
Maybe. Perhaps. Who could say? We'll see. Yeah. Okay, this I believe is the match that you're pointing out here.
Yes.
Barboza and I can't say his fucking name today.
Sandokan Jr.
Yeah. Versus, now hold on a minute. Are we getting spoiled? Did this announcement spoil a big time ML Dub storyline?
Where are you going with that?
Akira Kwan and Dijak. Now, sir, Akira Kwan is very, very involved with the Contra unit, right?
Very much so. Yeah.
And Donovan Dijak, very involved. With the former World Titan Federation. I don't think they're called that anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
MSL Inc. or whatever the hell. I don't know if they come to some sort of maybe it's like the old Survivor Series where the two managers get together and they shake hands. And they go, you know what? For the better of this night, you can borrow my talent and I'll, what? Fine. You know what?
Or listen, maybe Classy Freddie Blassie and Luscious Johnny V. They both stand at ringside.
True. Right.
And then when their man gets eliminated, like if the Doctor of Style Slick has if Butch Reed gets rolled up, then he just leaves with Butch Reed and he leaves Luscious Johnny V and whoever the other one was that I said, he just leaves them out there, Classy Freddie Blassie. So they could both be out there. So I don't know if it's necessarily a spoiler alert. Akira Kwan, didn't he work like one of the Cibernetico matches?
Yes. Yeah, not that long ago. He was there a couple months ago. For sure.
Yeah. So what a weird fucking match. Right. You got the two CMLL pirate guys.
Yeah,
right?
the two pirates.
And Dijak.
Donovan Dijak with his blade jacket and his school shooter jacket and his sunglasses or whatever.
Teaming with a guy in a different unit.
Yeah, against the Pirates. Yeah, I love it.
Cross-unit team. Yeah. So.
And I don't know if we're going to have to hand it to ISIS on this night, but Reina Isis versus Janai Kai finishes out the show.
Hand it to Reina Isis. You don't, in fact, have to hand it to Reina Isis.
Okay.
Isn't the original suite ISIL, which makes it even better?
I think so, yeah.
You don't, in fact, have to hand it to ISIL. Like the old name for ISIS.
Yeah.
Like the New York Times proper name for ISIS.
Yeah, right. With the periods involved, too, because it's the fucking New York Times. N.B.A. Get over yourselves, for God's sakes.
N.F.L.
Yeah, Mr. Goodell. Fuck off. Just say Goodell.
Everyone's Mr.
Get over yourselves.
Everyone's Mr.
How much?
Mr. Moss scored a touchdown and then mooned the crowd at
at the N.F.L. Yeah, come on, man. What are we doing here? Anyway, that's
proper journalism, sir. It's proper
journalism. It is proper journalism. By the way, that show fucking rocks. I hope that's available to watch, and I cannot wait. Maybe we should just go to Arena Mexico for that, right? You're close. You can get there. You're not that far.
I'm close.
You're closer than I am.
How close do you think I am to Mexico City?
I think you're pretty close. Let me see how close you are. Give me your address here. What's your full address here?
I'll say that right on the air. So
please,
it's
right.
573. Look, what do you think? Like the 10-minute hop, skip, and a jump?
Let me see how far you are from Arena Mexico. I feel like you're not that far from Arena Mexico.
Same flight you're taking. Like it's an extra 2 hours.
You, sir, are okay. Well, that's driving. You're not going to drive there.
Yeah. What? 17?
It was 18 hours. It was an 18-hour drive.
18 hours.
18 hours. It's a 5-hour flight. Okay, it's a little further than I thought.
I told you, it's not nowhere near Mexico City.
It's a little further than I thought.
God, you sound like my mother. Are you near mountains. El Paso? Are you near El Paso? No.
I'm not near El Paso.
It's about as close as you are right now. El Paso.
I guess I thought Mexico City was a little further north in Mexico, but it appears to not be very Very far north. Yeah, it's pretty far.
May as well be Costa Rica. At that point.
Yeah, you're not far. Yeah. Get to the Yucatan. You can get to the Yucatan Peninsula a little easier than that.
Act like it's a border town.
You hop over. Yeah.
Yeah.
You and Martinez Entertainment,
one of those touristy border towns that take American currency. That's not Mexico City.
Yeah, Laredo or something. Yeah, you could. I just thought you could hop in the van with the Martinez Entertainment guys and get on over there. But
18 hours in that van. Are they going to leave their masks on, or are they going to,
I feel at some point. Van? Yeah, I feel like at some point they're going to drop it. Yeah, what's the flight for me to get to? Yeah, you're right. It's probably. If
it's 18 hours for me, it's. Oh, the flight. If
my
it's
flight.
5 hours.
How am I?
Like
I'm actually a shorter. I'm actually a shorter flight to get there.
Well, see, I told you.
I think because of you have to get from your town to an actual airport that would fly there. So yeah, it's actually.
Yeah. I got to take the little mini.
Yeah, a little jumper to get to where you get
propeller deal.
Yeah.
Where the last time I took one, the guy was like, if someone could just switch sides, we need to balance the weight. And I'm like, oh, this sounds promising.
Yeah, don't love this. Yeah.
Balance
if I have to do that, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm done.
What happens if the luggage shifts, if I have to move over to balance the weight?
Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah. It's also much more expensive to take the little, way more convenient.
Yeah. So actually, I'm an hour closer to Mexico City somehow than you are. So,
because I got to get on a little propeller plane and fly to Houston or Dallas and then get on a real plane and go to Mexico City.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I'm down.
Or I could just take my private jet.
Yeah. Or your jet. Yeah. We'll charter a flight.
Record business this month.
Yeah. So. We'll charter a flight. You know
much
what?
Like MLW.
Here's the thing. We got to just call MLW and be like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Who has talked more? Who has promoted?
They don't care.
They don't. One guy. There's one guy that cares there.
Why don't we get the scoops? That's what I don't understand.
That's true. You're right. Well, this guy's
nobody talks about MLW except us. Is it flattering all the time? No. Is it flattering most of the time? No. Is it flattering any of the time? Not really. But,
in a sarcastic way, it is.
But we're the only ones talking about it. And I can guarantee you there's people who watch it specifically because of us.
Absolutely.
So I don't understand
in the
why
thousands.
We're not.
I believe in the thousands, but
probably. Yeah, I believe that too. So why aren't we getting the scoop? We should get scoops. Mm-hmm. Have you reached out to Court in a while?
It's been a while. I'll ask if he can fly.
I don't even remember.
I don't even remember what he was originally mad about. Yeah, I don't remember. It's been a while. I could probably. I had an easy one. I forget what it was, but it was like, just come on, just throw me a bone here. This is the easiest thing possible, and he ignored it. So
the PR guy wants nothing to do with anything I ask him, other than
the PR stuff.
Other than, do you want a media pass? That's right.
But I'm saying, if I ask him, can I get a media pass to Mexico City? And by media pass, I mean, I don't think it's going to work.
I mean, if you could get your own way there.
Nah.
That's like when many, many years ago when Bleacher Report, they said, hey, do you want to go cover UFC in Toronto? And I was like, sure. They're like, okay, you have to fly and get your own accommodation. I'm like, well, no.
So it's no different.
No.
I could just go. Yeah.
I'm like, the answer is then no. No, I do not want to cover UFC in Toronto.
Right.
And they were taken back by that. They're like, I don't understand why. I'm like, because I'm not losing money. I'm not paying for a flight and putting myself in a hotel room. What am I getting out of this?
But Joe, you're a featured columnist on
Bleacher
Report.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah, I'm getting a byline and a fucking media pass. That doesn't sound like a great deal for me. They were perplexed that I did. They were seriously. This went back and forth. I'm like, what am I? Some kind of fucking mark?
Did you lose? You must have lost your featured columnist. I
don't think I ever wrote for him again.
Yeah,
I think that was it. I think it was a mutually beneficial split. But yeah, I'm sure we can get past. But they're not gonna send us to fucking.
They should.
That's different. We don't work for MLW. Technically, I was working for Bleacher Report.
Yeah.
In the technical sense.
Hey, Court, I'll work for you. You see, his Court seems to be a good boss. Seems to the whisperer. He seems to whisper to get a lot of malcontents to work for him.
Should be whispering to us.
I agree. More whispers our way. More whispers our way, Court.
We've more than earned them.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, that's the world of MLW, and of course, it doesn't stop. But what does stop is this episode of the Flagship. So I want to thank you guys, of course, for listening, supporting everything we do. Flagship Podcast, flagshippatreon.com, all that great stuff. Again, like we mentioned, a lot of great content for you guys available on the $5 tier at flagshippatreon.com. Flagship Pluses, Thursday Dynamite reviews, Tour of the Territories, written content, a lot of stuff is up there. Busy week as always at flagshippatreon.com. And as always, we mentioned, next week, Instant Reaction Live, AEW Dynasty, $10 tier for that. So if you want to hear our thoughts about AEW Dynasty immediately following the show, Instant Reaction Live, $10 tier is how you're going to be able to do that. So again, flagshippatreon.com, $10 tier for that one. And that's it for us. So voiceofwrestling.com, voiceofwrestling.com/Discord to join the conversation. And yeah, that's Joe. I'm Rich. We'll talk to you guys next time. Take care. Bye.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.